You already know, man. Whoa, Easy Campus Legend, man. Follow me everywhere at Woe's World. That's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Tap in. Let's get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man, you laid it out.
Yeah, man.
So how do you think social media has influenced the rap business? Would you know?
Good question. You know what, Quad? I actually think about this a lot, man. Because social media, I do feel like at one point in time, it was a benefit to artists, to business, to a lot of things going on. But I feel like now it started to creep up to being along the lines of distraction. And I say that because social media is still very young. It's only 12, 15 years old, maybe. It's still ever changing. So you kind of got to refigure out new structure.
Development Committee. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Present.
House here. Gray here. Jones. Spencer.
Present.
Slight.
Present.
Star. Here. Madam Chair, you have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So today we are going to have a presentation with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District CEO Search Team. Before I call the panel up, I do want to let my colleagues know, please, today is really about just asking questions about the firm and giving any feedback that we would want to see in the new CEO. I asked my members to be concise and limit their time for 10 minutes. We do have some legislation after this presentation, and the panel does have a hard stop at 3 p.m. So I now call Mr. Hurd, Vice Chair, up. If you could come up with your team to the table. Hello, Vice Chair Hurd. So before I turn it over for your presentation, I'm not sure if the search team and the board members know all the council members, so I was hoping that we could start with introductions on behalf of my colleagues, and we could start with Councilman Kelly.
I'm Danny Kelly. Thank you. Danny Kelly. I'm the recently appointed councilman for Ward 11. But before that, for the last 9 years, I worked for CMSD. I was a student family recruiter, and I was at the first meeting that you had. I was committed the other two, but I did attend your first meeting at East, and a young fella, I don't know what I think he's from 3 different nations, Native American, gave a really good spiel. So I look forward to listening to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman Richard Starr, a Ward 5 CMSD graduate of the East Technical High School class of 2007, the greatest class to ever come out of East Technical High School for the viewers at home. Representing Ward 5 wards consist of neighborhoods, Savage Village, Broadway, Central, Midtown, parts of downtown as well. So a very centralized neighborhood, and I have quite a few schools in Ward 5.
Thank you. Through the chair to the panel, good afternoon, everyone. Stephanie House, I represent Ward 7. We have 14 schools in Ward 7, a mixture of everything. So, and I guess I was with myself, Councilman Starr, as well as Councilman Conwell. All 3 of us attended each of your sessions that were held at East Professional Center, Max Hayes, as well as John F. Kennedy. So we went to all because we wanted to actually hear and listen from residents, and we know that there has been effort to at least get feedback. But as we know, the ultimate decision will be in the hands of the mayor. So thank you all for this time, and welcome to Cleveland City Council.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jasmine Santana, and Chair of Workforce Education and Youth Development. I represent Ward 14, which is Clark Fulton neighborhood, Stockyard, Brooklyn Center, a little bit of Tremont, and West Boulevard. I am also a CMSD graduate, Max Hayes.
Oh yeah, I'm a CMSD graduate too, Cleveland School of the Arts.
So, okay, go ahead. Oh, wow, we're sharing all these. Right. Yeah.
Yes, hi, I'm Councilwoman Deborah Gray of Ward 4, and I am a graduate of CMSD, and I am the best class is 1973 of East Tech High. I'm a veteran, he's a baby, so I understand when he made that comment, but we still Be said like this, okay? All right. But I have also attended one of the classes that you guys had at John Kennedy, and it was awesome, and I learned a lot. I'm not directly in the school system like I used to be, because my two sons and grandchildren are all grads of they all went to the CSMD, but they all graduated out of college, and they gone having their lives and enjoying it. But they started from Cleveland Public School System, and it doesn't matter the amount of money or where you start. It starts from the home. So they all have careers, families, living their lives, from the Cleveland Public School System. So it does work. So I'm just glad to hear you guys here and just waiting for, hear what you have to say.
My name is Charles Slife. I am Ward 17 in the West Park neighborhood. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Jenny Spencer. I represent Ward 15, which is the Cadell, Edgewater, and Detroit Shoreway neighborhoods. And I've worked closely with CMSD in many capacities, but most recently with the facilities master planning process. So really had a chance to work very closely with the CEO and the whole team on a rigorous process around facilities improvement.
I'm Chris Harsh. I'm not on this committee. I'm just sitting in. I represent Ward 13. That's most of Old Brooklyn. I am a CMSD parent. All of my children attend public schools.
Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Vice Chair Hurd, and if you could also introduce your team. And if you could just share your name, just a little bit about your background, that would be helpful.
Okay. So I attended the Glenville Tarblooders High School, but I'm actually a graduate of John Adams. I went to John Adams for 6 whole months my senior year. So I have 2 high schools to be proud of. Yeah, and a football championship. I'm the vice chair of the Board of Education. I've been on the board for 18 years now, I think. Lost track. I will allow my colleagues to introduce themselves, colleagues and co-workers, as we go through. Start with Dr. Thomas.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Thomas. I'm a 12-year member of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and I live in the North Collinwood neighborhood. This is not my first time appearing before a city council committee hearing. For 7 years, I was Mayor Michael White's building commissioner, and so had to be here for building and housing issues. And I know you're coming up to budget hearings, so some of my favorite memories are looking out that window.
Monica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Santana Rosen. I'm the CEO and founder of ALMA Advisory Group. ALMA has been in existence for just about 6.5 years. We are a mission-driven consulting organization. We work with school systems all over the country as they work to attract, retain, inspire, and keep great staff. Perhaps more important to us is creating the conditions where people can really do their best work on behalf of the children that they serve. We're thrilled to be supporting the CEO search for Cleveland Metropolitan School District and look forward to the conversation today.
Leah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leah D. Hudnall. I am a Cleveland resident of Ward 2. I'm a daughter of Ward 1 and a Cleveland graduate of Cleveland School of the Arts. So I will have to beg to differ. I was appointed to this board in August of last year, and I'm so grateful to be here.
Kevin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Bertzloff, and I'm not a member of the board. I'm the attorney for the appointed board.
And not sure, we don't have a PowerPoint or anything.
No.
You're just, okay. So take it away, start your presentation.
Okay. And first of all, I just want to say how excited and appreciative we are of this invitation. It's important to us that we hear from all segments of the Cleveland community. So this is one of those steps that we get a chance to hear from you. We also received, I believe, 4 questions, Kevin?
We did.
Yeah, we received 4 questions from the chair, and we will be speaking on those 4 areas early on in the presentation. And then we'd like to, save the bulk of our time to hear from you. And with that, we will start with Leah Hudnall.
Thank you again. I'll just spend a brief moment talking about the importance of community to this process. So again, we're committed to a fully inclusive and transparent search process. Our process was always and will continue to be guided by input from the full CMSD community, which Alma Advisory Group CEO Monica Santana Rosen will share in more detail. The comprehensive search process has been designed to mitigate bias, and in a moment, we will ask Ms. Rosen to share more about specifics on how community has been engaged and how they will continue to be in this process and how it will continue to inform our decision-making. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Bertzloff.
Thank you, Ms. Hutton. Madam Chair, members of the committee, one of the 4 questions that the chair provided us prior to this hearing was asking how the CEO search is being funded. And so the answer to that is that it is being fully funded by the school district's general fund. There is no outside dollars, grants, or contributions from other organizations that are funding it. The board made a deliberate decision at the beginning of this process not to seek outside grant funding, just in order to make it clear that there was no other organization or entity other than the Board of Education and the school district, and the mayor, of course, in his concurring role, controlling this process. So all fully funded by the district.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas?
Thank you. The third question we received from the board chair was, what is the timeline for the search? There's nothing more important that a Board of Education does than hire the superintendent of a district, especially one as large as Cleveland's. And so the board is taking very seriously this assignment. We began to meet in September to outline what we thought were the critical factors in hiring a new CEO. And we began the process of putting out the request for proposals to hire a consulting firm. We knew we couldn't do it alone. We needed a search firm. The request for proposals went out at the end of September. Bids came back in October. And by the November meeting, our board meeting, we selected Alma as the search firm. We knew that they had conducted a successful search in Cincinnati. So we were pleased with their how they worked here in Ohio. You know, Ohio has very severe public records, has a very severe public records law. So we knew that they knew the process, and we were very pleased to work with Alma. Since December, the board meets every other Saturday, so we're devoting a lot of time to this, and we began to put together the timeline for Alma to come to Cleveland and begin to work with the community to solicit input. And as all of you have mentioned, you attended some of those meetings, or all of those meetings, thank you, and we had a series of 3 meetings in the middle of January without a snowstorm, thank goodness, to solicit input. And Alma went through and also had meetings with individual stakeholders to understand what all of the participants in the district, residents, parents, teachers, students themselves, faculty and staff, what are people looking for when we want a new CEO, to put together what's now called a job profile. And you'll hear more about that in just a little bit. Tonight, the board gets its presentation on what Alma discovered during those 3 nights of hearings and those multiple dozens and dozens of participant interviews. So the board will get that information tonight. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. From that information, we hope to this week finalize the job profile, and with your input, so that we can post that job profile and begin to solicit applications from people who are looking to come, who want to come to Cleveland to pursue the opportunity to lead our district. Interviews by Alma will take place in the month of March, and we expect that those final 3 candidates will be available to us by the end of March, early April, which is when we will then begin to bring in-person interviews. And there will be an opportunity for public participation through a series of panel interviews. So again, we could solicit your input through that. The board takes, again, very seriously this decision. We'll solicit input and evaluations from the people who are on these panels interviewing the candidate. We will make a final decision and we hope to have that decision made sometime in April. We know that Mr. Gordon's last day is the end of June, so we hope for a transition period. That transition process is being worked on as we speak, so that there will be something for the new CEO in place to learn how to manage a nearly $1 billion organization with over 5,000 employees. So we hope by the end of April to have this person. And if I may just emphasize, it is the board's decision who to hire. And we will be the ones making that decision. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And the fourth question that we received, and we're really not able or prepared to answer that question this afternoon, and the question was based on the feedback you received so far, what are the top concerns that we're hearing? And as a board, we have not been fully briefed because the research has not been completed. Part of that completion is what we're doing here today. As Dr. Thomas mentioned, there will be a presentation at our school board meeting this evening at 6:30, and we would hope that everyone can make it. If not, it is live streamed, so you'll be able to log on and watch it on your computer, telephone, or laptop. And in a moment, Mrs. Rosen will give us some detail on what that process has looked like, and then she's going to solicit your input. All right.
All right, well, thank you so much. The heart of our time here today is really dedicated to hear from each and every one of you. So we're excited to hear your perspectives in this process. At the board's request, wanted to share a little bit about how we are working with community members throughout this process. And for those of you who attended our community gatherings, you probably heard us say the ALMA Advisory Group cares deeply about the voice of the community. And what we share over and over again is that the people with the most at stake in any decision shouldn't just get to have input. Their voices should really drive the process. And that's how we think about this. And that's how this board is really treating this process. I want to quote Board Member Hudnall, who said, when we're truly inclusive, no one voice carries more weight than another. And so for us, we really want to hear from as many people as possible. We wanted to have as many opportunities for members of the community to participate. So there were 3 different ways in which community members were able to participate. The first was that we had an online survey that was available for anyone in the community to participate in. The second was the 3 community gatherings that we've already mentioned, and then the third was a series of one-on-one interviews where it made sense and focus groups with individuals. So I can't share too much that hasn't already shared with the board, but I will share how exciting it was to have a meeting with 400 of your amazing, brilliant CMSD students. And since there's so many graduates in the room today, I know you can all appreciate just how brilliant your students are and how really clear they were with us about what they wanted to see in their schools for themselves. We also met with many different parents, including last night with Esperanza, where I was able to sit down with 20 monolingual Spanish parents, some very new to the country, some who've been here for years. And they were also very poignant in the things that they cared about and their point of view on what is working well and what could be better. So those voices, that perspective that's shared with us through those different venues are being utilized in our process in 3 critical ways. First, those conversations deeply inform the job profile. As Board Member Thomas just mentioned earlier, the board is looking to leverage that information to really clarify what are the skills most needed for this role, what are the responsibilities, the challenges that this leader will be taking the district through, and that's something we want to hear from you all today as well. So we want to ensure that the board is really clear about the things that we must recruit and screen for. Our process is then designed to measure those things and only those things. It allows for a challenging, rigorous screening process. And what Alma Advisory Group has an excellent track record of seeing is that time and time again, you elevate the rigor of the process, you have more leaders of color emerge and a more diverse, talented pool of finalists because the process mitigates bias in a way that takes away some of the things that tend to hurt leaders of color in a process like this. So the job profile is the foundation of the entire process. The second thing is that your constituents shared with us their lived experiences, the things that occurred for them, many of which have no easy right or wrong leadership answer. Those experiences help us develop the screening process with interview questions that are performance-based and competency-based. Not tell us your philosophy about X, but describe for us a time when, or imagine this situation, how would you go about solving it? The third way in which community input and ways in which we're working with community members in this process is that the board is fully expecting to have a very inclusive process at the finalist stage. So we expect to have opportunities for community members to get to meet and interact with finalists and to be able to provide their input to the board as they weigh their final decision. So that's the main information that we wanted to share in terms of how we're working with community members. Our hope is to hear as much as possible from the council on the things that you want to make sure we're keeping in mind as we're carrying out this search. We'd love to hear from you the strengths that are important for the next CEO to champion and sustain. We want to hear from you the challenges you think the CEO needs to be ready to steward the school system through, and really want to hear what you see as the most important criteria for the next CEO: backgrounds, skills, and experiences. So those are the top things that we have in mind for this conversation from here.
Thank you, Ms. Rosen. And I'm not sure if I missed this. What was the overall number of participants so far that has provided input?
I don't have that information with me.
Okay, I know 400 students, but wasn't sure.
5,000 some surveys.
And there were a number of surveys returned, students.
Yes.
Interviews one-on-one.
Yeah, so we ended up having over 60 meetings. We had the opportunity to meet with over 1,800 members of the Cleveland community, and we have well over 3,000 survey responses in addition to that. So that's where that's where we start getting closer to those numbers.
And Ms. Rosen, just considering that your consultant firm is from Chicago,
We are,
correct? Has it been challenging reaching out to local organizations?
Yeah, so I have to, and I will this evening as well, really credit the CEO of CMSD and his team, who clearly made it a priority for us to have access to individuals when we came here. So, we saw close to 100 people at each of our 3 community gatherings that came out to meet with us. We had 0 no-shows in terms of the people that were scheduled to meet with us when we were here. To have several council members at our community gatherings, tremendous show of support, and the way that the community is showing up for something like a CEO search that's not like an obvious thing to come out and really speak to. It really demonstrated for us how much the Cleveland community cares about their schools and about this leadership role. So we didn't feel that we had any challenge meeting with people, but that's not really on Alma. It's really on the team working on the ground to help make sure everything was ready for us when we got here.
Got it. Thank you. So I'm going to kind of leave my feedback for the end, and I do want to turn it over to my colleagues now, and I want to start with Vice Chair Councilwoman House.
Thank you so much. Through the chair to the panel, good afternoon. Welcome again. I just had a couple of questions. I know we talked about the greater community. I just wanted to get a little bit of insight of how the conversations have been with current CMSD employees, starting with the educators as well as support team, everyone from our custodial to food service workers. Have they had a voice thus far in this process?
They have had a voice thus far. We were able to have meetings open to those communities, and they were also able to participate in the survey. So we'll be sharing tonight at 6:30 the results of that, but they have been a part of this process for sure.
Thank you. And I guess just a follow-up from that, through the chair to the panel, for the share out that will be happening with the board tonight, are those meetings like streamed online, or can you only be there in person?
They're on live stream.
Okay. Where, could you share that information? Where can people live stream?
ClevelandMetroSchools.org/CEO search.
Okay.
I believe you can get there directly from the school district's website. You'll
Okay.
see a box you can click on that says CEO search.
Okay, I will make sure from our side on communications that we will also share that information out. So, and hopefully members, can also send it out just for people who are unable to go in person to hear with all this work that is taking place, what are we then profiling our soon-to-be next CEO. I guess the other thing that I would say, which I've voiced, but I guess, everybody has a lot of different opinions on what we need in a new CEO. I just would hope that we can attract someone who is grounded in community. Also getting someone and identifying and understanding that we are just in a place where education has not worked holistically for Black children in particular. It has not worked. It hasn't worked, and I hope they would have a mindset to creating an educational experience that works and centers Black children. That's coming from my perspective. And I always say, what did I get the insight from it? It was the book, A Nickel and a Prayer, written, was the Jane Edna Hunter story. And when you read the story, it's very interesting. She talked about her experience, migrating to Cleveland from the South. And when she talked about education, she talked about the difference. This was in the early 1900s. The difference of what it looked like, which was Jane Addams High School compared to East Tech High School. Jane Addams was the school that white children went to, and East Tech was the school that Black children went to. And I said, it's just amazing, because here in 2023, we hear some of the same conversations that book that was given the experience of 1900 in Cleveland versus 2023. If you can still have the same conversations, that's why I'm very challenged to say, if we have a CEO that not only understands that reality, but is committed to changing our educational experiences for our children, so that when we go to 2200, people aren't having the same conversations that we're having in 2023. So that's what I'll say with that.
Thank you, Councilwoman House. And next, I have Councilman Starr.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for providing this opportunity for each of us council members to essentially have 10 minutes to speak, right, Chair?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chair, we have 10 minutes each?
Yes, 10 minutes
Okay,
each.
just
Thank you.
thank you for that, for providing this time and opportunity for us as council members to be able to have the discussion with the CEO, CMSD Search Committee, as well as the Board of Education. First, I definitely want to ask, through the chair to the board, what is your stance on Senate Bill 1? To the chief, to the board, do the Board of Education have any stance on Senate Bill 1, which will remove the power of board members for the state education to cover the authority now under the governor that was just recently introduced? Through the chair. Anyone at the table?
I'm familiar with the bill. it's not on. I'm not a fan of the bill, that's for sure. This is my personal belief, that public education in Ohio and other places around the country is under attack. This is just another way, in my opinion, to dilute that organization in Columbus by moving a lot of their power from where it should be to the governor's office or the state legislature where it should not be.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I would just ask that question because last night, me and my colleague, Kevin Conwell, as well as support from this body, we introduced a resolution opposing of that. We do not support that as well, but one of the things you do when you do a resolution, you do a lot of research. And the individual who is introducing the bill, I don't get into names. One of the things I read in the article is they were speaking on some of the deliverables that they believe the state board has not delivered. And one thing that stuck out was it mentioned the fact that the school state board has yet to hire somebody to be the Ohio school superintendent.
So sad.
And, once you read that articles and really me understanding the importance of a school board, I was just trying to think, it made me think about our school board to make sure I also bring this to the front is we entrust in our school board to make sure our schools is operating the way it needs to be. And one of the things we deal with, and myself included, is the curriculum inside of our schools. And what I mean by that is we have some schools that do great. We got a great curriculum program at John Hay High School. But why only John Hay? What can we do to make sure we address some of the challenges? And what I mean by that is, for years now, I always speak about the community, but I speak about the facts that this gun violence that we see and spike in our city has to do with the curriculum and the education. And what that means is we have an 80% graduation rate, but this city is burying hundreds of young people due to gun violence every day. So me as an educator, me who love education and an activist, I think about it. When you have young people that I've been mentoring for over 15 years, I've been into the outreach work. I've attended graduation where I know a kid couldn't possibly read. And after they graduate, they try to get a job, but then I look up and see that their comprehension skills or their core literacy is off. So it's hard for them to keep the job. So they get into the streets. Really wasn't in the streets growing up, but they trying to do whatever they got to do because they possibly didn't father a child, living with mom. Mom wants her $100 of rent, no matter what. Kids, mama wants got to take care of a mouth to feed. But then also they can't keep a job. So they get into these streets, and the streets is vicious. Me growing up in King Kennedy, I know firsthand, it ain't built for everybody, and everybody don't make it out, or everyone don't have that one or that group of individuals to pull them out. So when I look at this spike in violence, I'm trying to figure out where does this education lie in it. And then through the work that I've done and being inside the schools, it's that the kids don't have the comprehension skills. So I did some further research through the chair, and I just wanted to bring this up, that this was done in around 2018, 2019. From year one, only 39% of our students are on track with their core literacy, as in math, reading, and writing. Year two, 16.2% is on track. Year three, only 23% is on track. So by the third grade, only 77% of our kids passes, because I know we don't leave many behind, and they pass on to the next grade, but they don't have their core literacy. Now, they're going to get passed on. And then us as leaders, we get on the high school so quick, but I'm just thinking from the lens of some educators, when they get a kid in ninth grade or a classroom full that just can't do the basic reading, basic writing, basic math. And I'm not just saying that, but we harp on this 80% graduation rate. If I'm just pushing kids out, we're doing a disservice. But if we can highlight a great program that is running at John Hay, how do we get that into all of our schools? The same dollars, the same effort that we put into those students at John Hay, we need to spread that out. So I am interested to the search committee through the chair to make sure we have a CEO that understands the city of Cleveland. We don't need no one that has never, I quote, never ate a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Yeah,
Never ate cereal at night, trying to lead our kids throughout some survival time. Because I remember going to school and I ate on all three floors. Dr. Taylor will tell you, I was eating on that first floor, second floor, third floor because I wanted something to eat. And now I'm not going to get into, because my colleague, House, if I talk about meals, she'll get into how much money we're not putting into good quality food for our kids at times. And they mention it very much, so much that they call us. But I definitely want to make sure we just point out the fact that we need to have a CEO that understands the city of Cleveland. We don't got time for an experiment. We don't got time for them to try to get to know what's going on. I did say this at the, I said this at the CEO search at the 3 committees meetings that I attended. I'm talking homegrown. If we don't have someone that's homegrown that understands this situation, that can fix it, then we're struggling with education. And we have to have those type of individuals at the forefront for an opportunity to get a chance to apply and also go through the process to possibly be hired. That's just a quick synopsis of me. I definitely wanted to bring out, we did talk about the CEO search funding. My question to the table would be, within the first 90 days, what does it look like for a potential CEO search for the CEOs, through the chair to the table?
Within the first 90 days of
Hire.
hire?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I think that question is more for the board.
Yep.
And I've been through this twice. This is my 3rd CEO search. And in the past, we have asked, and CEOs have delivered, what do your first 100 days look like? Because during the interview process, the concerns and challenges that are being brought to our attention will be brought to the attention of this new candidate, this new employee. And so we need to hear from them, what is your first 100 days looking like?
Okay.
So it's something I can't answer today because I'm not the candidate.
Not yet?
That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair to the board, are there any major decisions that are needed once the CEO is selected? Example, like opening, closing, merging schools. Is this something that somebody got to jump in their very first week, have to start dealing with it? Because Cleveland is tough, and that teachers union is even tougher, and our educators are even tougher. But most important, our students are very tough as well. Through the chair.
If I understand the question correctly, what is it?
Major decisions that the CEO may have.
In other words, what goals will we give that person? And I don't think we're there yet. Those goals have to be infused with what the community wants.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you. And I definitely, I mentioned gun violence, and I know we got violence prevention strategy coming up next, Chair, so I'm not going to go into depth with that, but I definitely want to say let's take a moment of silence for those 3 scholars that we lost due to gun violence that are affected by CMSD as well. But also with this new CEO search, are they willing to roll up their sleeves to come up with an actual plan to make sure we're addressing gun violence? There's the mental side of it, there's the resource side of it, and it goes back to the curriculum. Is this CEO that we're looking for is willing to address a couple of different things? I like to say athletics. Athletics in the CMSD is horrible right now. And there's too much policy and red tape that we have to address. Meaning an example I like to say through the chair would be, if the legendary Phil Jackson, basketball coach, 11 NBA finals, if I correct. If he wanted to come to Cleveland and say he wanted to coach at one of our schools, he's not eligible to coach. If Serena Williams wanted to come and coach at one of our schools, she's not able to. If Tiger Woods wanted to come teach golf and coach, he's not eligible to become a coach because of the union and the little red tape that says you have to be in the union to coach. So therefore, look what happens with our wonderful athletic program that we used to have. It has just been lower and lower. Now, a shout out to Desiree Powell and them trying to do the work that they have, but it's red tape and there's policies that prohibits them to do some things that they want. Now, I got a sports management undergrad degree, so I just want to make sure I tell the table that that's something that I study and business management. But in CMSD, we've allowing people to earn extra income when they don't even have the heart to teach and educate. It ain't all about just, hey, I'm about to just get a job and do it. So do we have to make sure we put on the forefront a CEO who understands that athletics sometimes change the lives of young individuals in our school district, determining if I'm going to come to school on time or just not get grades at all because I'm not playing. Those type of things is something we definitely have to address within the school district, as well as creating a system that can help support that initiative. And I believe there's some great alumni. I'm an alumni of East Tech, and East Tech football program is horrible. It sucks. It's terrible. And if the head coach is watching, he needs to get on his job. Because on June 1st, we should never have, in the middle of 9 public housing, only 1 kid coming out for football. Year in and year out, but then it's put back onto the principal got to do this, the athletic director got to do this, but at the end of the day, we got to do all this red tape, but our kids are failing and we're losing them to the streets because they don't got no other option. When I was a kid, I got a chance to dream. Miss Victoria J. McAdoo, Miss Deborah Ward, my principal, they made me believe that when I was asked what I was going to be a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, a football player. I dreamed that. Our young people are not dreaming that because the reality is not present no more because they're not getting the opportunity to those chances. So we need a CEO who's going to roll up his sleeves and address this head on, not saying it's a policy that, no. Use our authority to do what is right for our kids. We can't keep burying them due to the fact that they're not competent, due to the fact they don't have the resources, or they're not able to connect to it, or have the good curriculum that you may have at a Max Hayes, a John Hay, and then also the workforce program. If the new CEO is willing to look up and come up with how do we spread this? You know, one of my famous quote, Chair, is equality is giving everybody a pair of tennis shoes. Equity is giving everybody a pair of tennis shoes that they fit, that they can actually use. And we're not doing all that. Just working in Shiloh's and providing it for this school, for this neighborhood, isn't cutting it. I love the new restaurant. I do, CMSD. I love that new restaurant. But we also is an East Technical School. We need some technical. We got Tri-C down the street. We need to enhance those type of programs. We need kids to understand that I'm dealing with a neighborhood where the median income is $10,500. I'm the second oldest of 6 children, 4 boys, 2 girls, 4 baby fathers. Everybody left. Nobody was in there. Who helped me? That's Ms. Ward, Ms. McAdoo, East Tech football, Jerry Stubert. They made sure I was not going to fall to the wayside through the education. And I think right now, since 2007, I think we're lost. We lost so much stride, and it's really, really destroying us. And I got one last point, Chair, and I'm going to pass it over. I'm looking at the timer. I see I'm 30 seconds over. I'm sorry, please. I just want to make sure I also just highlight the fact. I got 1 minute. Okay, I just want to make sure I just highlight the fact that I urge this search committee. I urge the board. I definitely want to tell if it's possible for council to have some representation. I would love to volunteer because if we don't get this right now, there's no telling when the next CEO position will be open for us to try to correct some of the things. So I'm just interested from my lens, from council, as an activist, to ensure that we, as a committee, a search team, finding somebody that is homegrown, who's willing to do the work, but also address the things that we challenge, from the athletics, the curriculum, the safety, the violence, the desire. You know, I sent the email when we lost a kid to gun violence over at John Adams at 9:21 at night, asking the CEO of the school district, like, we cannot open the school. It shouldn't be 9:21 p.m. and a kid just left out of the building and they get killed, and we're scheduled to go to school tomorrow. When I was in high school, I dealt with losing friends to gun violence too. But I can't go to school. I can't. Matter of fact, the educators, the administrator, how can they do a great job if they just was talking to this young man in the hallway, and then they, guess what, the first revivers on the scene, and they just seeing the kid die fighting for their life, and they're expected to come back to school the next day. We need somebody that's competent, that understands all the things and challenges that we have in the community, working with the resources. And then also, the last but not least, I'm sorry, Chair, you know how passionate about the school is. I'm up after school programming to help address the needs. I believe if our school lights are on and we changing this bus route to make sure our kids can get a service, we can be able to make an impact in their life. And I yield, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair and Vice Chair.
Thank you. I love your passion. I think you need to be on the board somehow. Next, I'm sorry, I just kind of lost my list here. Just want to make sure I don't skip anyone. So next on the list, I have Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to just start with an understanding of the response you've gotten back from the community. I believe you said through the chair that 5,000 people had responded to the survey. Is that correct?
No, just over 3,000.
3,000, okay. And then my follow-up to that is, I was at one of the in-person meetings at Max Hayes, and I think there were about 50 people there. I don't know, I didn't go to the other two, but would I be correct in thinking that about 200 people attended the in-person sessions?
Through the chair to the council member, we had about close to 100 people each night.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on, is that, Mr. Chairman?
On that point.
On that point.
Okay.
Is that for all of the
You have to
meetings?
ask for the point. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, on the point?
Councilman Harsh, would you allow Joe Jones a point?
Yes.
Is that on all of the meetings combined or just this one?
That was, through the chair to the council member, that was for all three community gatherings.
So it was only 100 people in attendance, for clarification?
In each of those evenings. So one night we had about 93 people, one night we had 85, and one night we had 94.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh.
So,
Go ahead.
Through the chair, in my room, my wife and I and one other parent were the only parents present. Everybody else was not even a teacher. They were other professionals who work in education. Do you know the breakdown, through the chair, of the people that attended and have returned these surveys that are actual parents of CMSD students?
Good question. Through the chair to the council member, we're going to be providing a full report tonight to the board at 6:30 p.m., and we'll be sharing the breakdown of who participated.
Through the chair, so that number is known to this body?
Yes, we have the breakdown of participation that we'll be sharing this evening.
You can't share that with me right now?
No, we're going to be sharing our full report at the board meeting this evening.
I see. So would it then be impossible to ask what percentage or how many of the people who responded were also teachers?
We'll be sharing that information this evening.
Okay. Well, through the chair, or to the chair, I am aware that, I didn't mention it, I probably should have, I'm also the dutiful husband of a CMSD teacher, as are my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I come from a big married family of public school teachers. And I think that, Madam Chair, one of the reasons why we might be seeing thousands of people responding is fear. I think there's a lot of fear right now in CMSD and in the schools and amongst parents about the direction of the schools. For decades, people fled CMSD in every single direction. And it's not lost on this body that when a nickel and a prayer was written in 1940, the wealthy had already abandoned public education. The wealthy never were part of public education. They built private schools and went off on their own from day one. They never sent their kids to school with our kids. But from 1940 to 1990, parochial schools then gobbled up another huge percentage of the community. And Cleveland has an incredibly robust parochial infrastructure where we lose thousands of students in the city of Cleveland to Catholic schools and other religiously run schools. But then in the late 90s, Ohio misguidingly allowed charter schools, and then we started to watch the African American community flee our public school systems as well to enroll their children in charter schools, which have been an abysmal failure. Closing down after a few years, abandoning children, sending them back into CMSD. We regularly have kids that are kicked out of charter schools around October, right after the head count, and then are sent back into public school, and we have to as parents and teachers in a community, we have to embrace these students because they are our neighbors and our loved ones, but they are horribly educated by these charter schools, and CMSD is left to pick up the pieces when these charter schools fail. So one of my questions is, as the board searches for a new CEO, how are you thinking about that person's experience in public versus charter as it pertains to the future of CMSD?
So we don't have the criteria yet for the position, but what I can tell you is that our process emphasizes competency over everything else. So, for example, one of the council members mentioned the importance of being community-centered. We have to define exactly what community-centered means, how we measure that, how we know it in terms of someone's proven track record. There is a world in which someone from a charter organization is able to demonstrate that competency. The board would have to make their own judgment on that. So for us, we look at competency over affiliation.
So the board would not consider experience in public schools to be a prerequisite to be the CEO of a large public school district?
So like I said, we have not yet set the criteria for the position, but what I'm explaining is that competency will be incredibly important in this process, and that's what we'll be measuring in the process. That said, we have not yet set the requirements. So once the job profile is created, you'll be able to see exactly what the board has identified as the required experience, background, and competencies for the role.
To the chairman, to the councilman, let's not forget that we have the Cleveland Plan, which is state law, that any new CEO has to abide by, and that there is the Transformation Alliance in place in Cleveland, which governs those charter schools. So any candidate is going to have to know about those two very specific things and how charter schools are managed before we would even consider them.
And Madam Chair, I believe it's a very important line of questioning, though, because the Cleveland Plan is so specific and unique, and there really, I don't think, are a whole lot of comparisons to it out there in the rest of the world. But it does draw into question the very, very important distinction between somebody who understands how to support and strengthen public schools in an environment that is being ravaged by parochial and charter schools, the way that CMSD has been. My next question through the chair is, it was said that the board has full hiring decision. And it's my understanding, and to be clear, that the board is the only decider in the hiring decision. So through the chair, what is the mayor's role?
To the chair, to the councilman, the way the law is written here for the city of Cleveland, well, I shouldn't say the city of Cleveland, but for Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and as you know, the CEO has a contract. That contract is signed by two people, the chair of the Board of Education and the CEO. So that is the process. The way the law is written, the CEO is hired and or fired with the concurrence of the mayor. The mayor does not sign any employment contracts, has no fiscal responsibility to the school district, but concurs with the board's decision.
Then pardon my ignorance, but if the chair of the Board of Education and the CEO are the only ones signing documents, what does the word concurrence of the mayor mean?
That means, and we're working through that right now. I think the way you build that concurrence is engagement throughout the process. You don't want to hire a person and then go to the mayor and say, we want to hire this person, and the mayor's like, well, who is this person?
Through the chair, can the mayor veto a hiring decision?
I don't think he can veto. I think he can not concur.
Through the chair, would not concurring prevent a candidate from being hired by the board?
Good questions.
Bird Smith. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, to the through the chair to the councilman. Yes, this is all governed by the Ohio Revised Code. As you probably know, the city charter doesn't impact it at all. But the Ohio Revised Code, since 1998, when the mayors of Cleveland first got the authority to appoint the board, and created a municipal school district out of what was then called the city school district. The role is that the CEO is hired, is appointed by the board with the concurrence of the mayor. So what that essentially means is that the board can't act alone, the mayor can't act alone. They can only act and appoint in partnership. So if the board were to try to hire someone and the mayor didn't concur, that person could not legally be appointed CEO. If a mayor wished to act alone and the board didn't agree with that appointment and a majority of the board didn't support it, that person wouldn't be appointed. So.
Okay, so through the chair, so then the mayor does have to concur with the board's decision?
The person who, yes, the mayor,
Okay.
the mayor has to concur with the board's appointment, otherwise the appointment is not valid.
Through the chair, did the board want to hire Eric Gordon as CEO in April of 2022?
Pardon me?
Eric Gordon's contract was up last year, I believe, in April. Did the board wish to hire Eric Gordon to stay on as the CEO at that time?
We hadn't really gotten that far into our contract talks.
At the time that his contract expired?
His contract is not expired.
I'm sorry, I thought his contract expired in April of 2022. I could have this factually.
No, his contract expires at the end of June of this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Allow Councilman Starr appoint.
With my remaining 3 seconds,
And then
yes,
I'll give
ma'am.
you- Yes, you get the.
So the point I just want to say through the chair to Councilman Harsh, I believe you're saying that they were looking to renew his contract in April because they knew it was set for possibly June of this year to end. And I believe the board wasn't trying to start a new year without having a plan. And then something happened when CEO Eric Gordon decided to resign. So I think they were just trying to extend his contract.
Well past April, though, that decision came down.
They issued a contract to extend, and then Eric Gordon said he was retired through the chair.
Months later, when those contract talks did not occur.
Does any of the board members have any input, feedback? So, go ahead.
To the chair, and help me out, Kevin, with my recollection. I do not believe that we had offered Eric, or the CEO, an extension of his contract.
That is correct. That is correct.
Right. There was no offer to extend his contract.
Do you want to respond, Councilman Harsh?
I just want us to be clear. The Board of Education is going to hire the next CEO, but not without the concurrence of the mayor. I think the public should be aware of that. That should be clear and not confusing.
That didn't happen with Frank Jackson.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh. And once again, to my colleagues, I know 10 minutes is not a lot of time, but Ms. Rosen has agreed to meet with any council members outside of this committee to get more input or any questions. So thank you for that. So next in line, I have Councilwoman Gray.
I got you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. I just have a few suggestions. When I attended the meeting at John F. Kennedy, parents and some teachers was in that particular meeting, and I heard the passion, the empathy, the concern of what they have seen over the years they have worked with students. And
That's sad.
it was very heart-wrenching because of what they have went through and how they seen the system has diminished over time. and where it is today. And like I said, I'm indirectly involved with the school system, but just sitting in that room, I definitely was able to connect with their concerns. Because at one point, when I was in school, I went to East Tech in the 70s, per se. And during that time, you know, the world was different. So we really can't compare what happened and why it happened. I was a student. I wasn't entrenched with the board and education and everything pertaining to that. But I know at that time, my mother was a PTA parent. And I know, I'm not sure if the school system have that still, but that needs to come back. That needs to come back because the parents during my time was at the PTA openings. The school will open up in September, and within the 6 weeks, you had a PTA conference opening for the parents to come in to see where, their children were. Within 6 weeks. They were there. So they had a lot of PTA meetings throughout the school system, and the parents was very engaged and involved with the studies, with the grades, with homework. You also had a truant officer that was there, and if your grades dropped, that truant officer was at your home. And when you would come home from school and you seen that black funeral limousine in front of your car, you knew it was over. It was over. So things like that needs to be looked at with this new CEO. And I agree with the colleagues. You have to be local and boots on the ground, per se. Also, they had a lot of after-school programs that assisted the children to understand what they needed to learn, with their studies. We were there after school. You had detention. You had strong volunteer parents in the school system. You had those strong particular teachers that was in the detention room that ensured that student had to do that homework that he did not, that he wasn't attended to in the class. And after school attention gave the kids strength enough to understand that someone cared. That someone really cared about them. That's right. So, and then also, now I don't know what's going on with the literacy, but I think a lot of parents need that class too, to engage with their child, with their studies. Because a lot of parents are disengaged because they busy in their lifestyle, they trying to pay bills, they not focused enough, the attention is not there, and the kids don't have that oversight with the parent. Because like I said earlier, basically everything starts from home. And everybody else is a supporter of the parent with their child to get that child through life, to understand the structure of his and her lifestyle that they have to eventually decide on how to maintain. Another thing, we need the CEO to be boots on the ground, not to be afraid to go into the community, him or herself. They have to be that type of engagement because if you sing Lean on Me, you see what that principal did. I love that movie, Lean on Me, Chair to the Committee. Yeah, so we need a principal, not with a bat, but just to be out boots on the ground, okay? And also, and this comes from everything that I seen in that session I was in John F. K., what I heard, and the understanding of the reconnection of the school system that need to actually educate the child and be focused on that child throughout their whole life, from the time they enter into preschool all the way through the 12th grade, for them to get them where they want to be. It don't have to be college. It don't have to be college. A lot of kids don't want to go to college, and we have to support their needs of what they want to, of what they want to be and where they want to grow from, per se. We need to have study programs that would help reflect with each student challenge, because a lot of students challenge in a different way, and we can't understand that, but you need someone that's in the school that has that expertise of understanding on how to relate with that child throughout the entire system, because every child is different, and the childs are dealing with so much of inconsistency of being insecure, being bullied, and being bullied and just frightened of everything now, and that's where that fear comes from. And we have to have someone, that CEO has to know all this that I have experienced when I was in school. It's not there. It's not there. That's what I heard in that session, and this is what a lot of the students, the teachers and the parents that was in that session, they covered more than what I'm talking about, but they were all on point, and they want to see someone effective. They want to see somebody that, someone that's going to be hands-on, that's a good listener, that cares. And definitely, like I said, boots on the ground is very imperative, even with us as councils. Our constituents, when they see us out in the community, they connect with us immediately. They know that we out there listening to them of their issues and their concerns of what is needed in their neighborhood, in the community, and how to grow. And that's what I heard from that session from the parents and the teacher, and I'm going to continue to say that because, like I said, I'm indirectly not engaged with the school system, but that one section, those teachers and parents spoke volumes of concern, and that is missing in the school system, per se. So, and just to start from, you got to start, from the root of the problem. And I don't even have an answer for the root of the problem, but I know that these teachers and parents want to save the CMSD school system. They want it to be saved, but they need the right leader. They need someone that's so compassionate you can walk in, sometimes you can walk in a door and you can feel that person. You're like, oh my God, that's the person. That is the person. You can feel the passion. You can feel that person sit down and see everything in that one person and know that is the person for the job. So this one, I'm just saying that that's what I'm just communicating that from what I heard from them and what I seen and what I know from where I came from being growing up in the Cleveland Public School System, what we had that gave us guidance and structure. And that's what these kids are missing. That's your loophole. And if which way it need to be found, we need to connect those children again to know that this system will work for them. It has to this time for the CEO that is chosen. So thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. And I love Lean On Me. He was, he had that tough love, right? And so we definitely need to see that quality in our new CEO. So next up I have, and you were right on time, we have Councilman Slife, and then I have Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief because I think one of my main question was similar to what Councilman Harsh had kind of gotten to about kind of the demographic breakdown of who participated in in-person meetings, the survey. I'll do my best to tune in virtually tonight, but I guess my concern is, knowing that such an important target audience is the parents, but the ability for a parent to be able to come to a meeting, be interested in seeing from your presentation tonight, Ms. Rosen, kind of what to the degree to which you were able to successfully tap that cohort, and if it comes to pass that the response rate was not where you'd want it to be, what additional efforts are going to be made to really meaningfully get to those parents? Because their perspective is important, but attending a community meeting at night when you have young kids is difficult. Layer onto that all of the challenges that Councilwoman Gray also included that members of our community face, and there's a lot of hurdles to getting that perspective in. So, thank you.
That's it? That's it. Oh, okay, good. Thank you, Councilman Slay. And then, so, wow, you caught me off guard. So, next in line, I have Councilwoman Spencer, and then I have Councilman Joe Jones.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I really have been moved by the comments of our colleagues at the table, some of the personal stories shared, and the commitment to educate our children. That I think we all feel that we share that responsibility in our communities of making them communities where everyone is healthy and thriving. And I appreciated what Councilwoman House said about centering Black children. So many of the comments shared today are really will sit with me and have been sitting with me this afternoon. I will be extremely interested to follow then tonight in what's presented to the board, which sounds like it would be a more comprehensive summary of where the process is in this moment. I'm interested, although I'm not married to a public school teacher, I do have a number of close associates who are educators in CMSD, and I know that there were some questions about engagement with the educators, with teachers specifically, and through the chair, I was curious if an update could be offered about teacher engagement and teacher feedback in this search process.
To the chair, to the council member, we will be specifically addressing that this evening when we present to the board, so we'll be able to answer that question tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get just curious, Ms. Rosen, why can't that, just for the viewers or to understand why you're not sharing that information, can you let us know why?
Yeah, so that information hasn't yet been shared with the board, so I'm not able to provide information that hasn't yet been provided to the board.
Thank you.
So that, and in fact, today's conversation is part of the input, so my report isn't final until after this meeting right
Got it.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman Spencer. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I think I'll just offer a kind of a comment as well through the chair, which is that I think there is a lot of evidence, and with having so many board members at the table, attributable to your work as well, that the school district has made strides, and they really have been measurable. And so I would certainly hope that any incoming CEO would understand the sort of generational work that's been going on. And one thing that our council has been learning is that some of the big initiatives that the community has begun to invest in, for example, Say Yes, are not fully funded. The work is not done. So what I would be somewhat, I would feel very cautious about would be a CEO who, rather than seeing existing initiatives to completion and to fulfill their potential, kind of veering off in a different direction, unless there were strong and rigorous evidence that that would be necessary. And from my perspective, I think that a lot of what's been going on has made a difference. I do, though, want to comment on what my colleague Councilman Starr mentioned, and I think as a member of the community, although I don't have children, some of the questions about making sure we understand the difference between beginning to measure post-graduation competency. So we know that the graduation rates have gone up. That's so incredibly important. But post-graduation competency in terms of, can you really go on for post-secondary, whatever you're going to do, and succeed and thrive in those environments? So what are the ways to measure that as well? Not just the district's own measurements, but what's happening with its graduates after the fact. I don't know if I have anything further to offer. I think there's a lot of commitment to continue to follow the process. I'm extremely interested in teacher engagement and look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Spencer. Next up, Councilman Jones.
Madam Chairwoman, I started politics out in part with the school district way back in the 1990s, actually in 1988. and was a proponent with a number of folks who were frustrated with, at that time, with the state of education in the city of Cleveland. And we pushed to support charter schools to give citizens an opportunity to have choice. Since that period of time, I also supported, and I want to give Mrs. Rosen an opportunity to understand the backdrop here and where I'm coming from. We supported having mayoral takeover over the schools. I supported the 4L campaign for an elected school board at that period of time. We had debates in our community, and then Mayor White came out with a proposal and proposition of having an appointed school board. At that time, I supported then Mayor Mike White and that group, and supporting a appointed school board, and then God blessed me to have the opportunity a couple of years later to then sit on the Cleveland City Council. From that particular period of time, moving into where we are now, it looked promising, an appointed board, but when comparisons and contrast in terms of where we are, we had more students in the school board at the time. I think at the time, school boasted over 70-some thousand students. Today, we're down to a hobble of 30,000 students. It hurt me to the soul of my spirit to sit here and see that we are helping students in fundamentals when the program of Say Yes came to the table and said we need additional funds to support staff personnel to help kids with food, help them to be able to come to school, help them with clothing, help them with being able to brush their teeth. That was actually said at this table. All those kinds of things hurt my soul and my spirit, because I always believe that if a city has failed to educate its young, it has failed its future. And so this is a passion that runs in me all the way to my youth, and I've seen an utter failure from the point of moving from an election state of existence to an appointed board, and then to hear my colleague talk about who were making an appointment, and to even see that that is somewhat appears to be technically removed from the hands of a mayor or any elected body. And then the failure of communications here at this table of council, when we used to have your board come in frequently, but I guess the questions got a little bit too tough for you guys, and then it decided that you would not be sitting in front of council asking questions, the kind of tough questions that council members need to ask to understand what's actually going on inside the educational campuses in their very respective neighborhoods. One of the challenges sitting here at the end of this table is, as an elected official, we have very, very extensive jobs, and we have to do and consume a lot of time in trying to help to reinvent our communities. One of the challenges that I have is not only trying to bring new development businesses in the neighborhood and rehabilitate existing homes and handle the myriads of calls that come into me on a daily basis and emails and all the stuff that goes with that, is the challenge of trying to deal with an educational system as relates to trying to bring in new families. And the first thing to look at is, what is the state of the education in this city? And when they start looking at that, they decide to go to communities and neighborhoods that have better educational opportunities. So what we're faced with right now in our city, unfortunately, is a school system that continues to each year have some new plan, and some new program, some new marketing this. And so it seems like this didn't work, then we're going to go over here to this. And if that didn't work, we're going to go over to this new program. So the question I would have, Madam Chairwoman, if I could ask this question, and I would hope that someone here would have the question to it, and if they don't have the question, it just goes to lend to me just how bad the system is. What is your annual budget?
Okay, and really quick, if you don't mind, just to remind my colleagues, the two questions that the committee, the search committee is looking for is biggest issue the new CEO will face in the district and qualities the new CEO should possess. So as far as CMSD questions or anything that has to deal with budgets and so forth, this is not the group at this point to answer. But go ahead, I will let any of the board members respond.
To the chairman and to the councilman, Mr. Councilman, Mr. Jones, general fund budget is approximately $750 million.
$750 million. And Madam Chairwoman, these next set of questions, I'll just give them to Mrs. Saban so she can ask this information. How many employees do the district have? From A to Z, from the janitor all the way up to the superintendent. How many employees are employed in the city of Cleveland?
To the councilman, to the chairman.
No, I don't want the answer to that. This is just really quickly. So just for the sake of time, thank you, distinguished lady. From A to Z, how many employees are in the city of Cleveland? How many of them live in the city of Cleveland?
And do you want them to email this to you, or are you asking for them
Yes,
to
ma'am.
answer right
I'm
now?
asking Ms. Saban to take care of it.
No, okay.
Our staff person.
Okay.
How many contractors / vendors / consultants work for the Cleveland Board of Education? And how many of them live in the city of Cleveland? And thank you for including the annual budget. And then let me just say this, because this is important in terms of lack of communications. The lack of communications with office holders in the city of Cleveland has been horrible. A good example of that, Mrs. Rosen, as you were putting this together, we had a blue ribbon school in our community. It was Whitney Young. It was the only school in your entire district that was at a C rating. It had 150 students there. And your superintendent and his crew came in and said, well, you know, we cannot have we cannot sustain 140 students in this building. We cannot financially do it. And so we're going to have to disrupt it and disperse it and throw it everywhere. What hurt the most here is that it was your only school that was successful in your whole district. The only one. And you killed it. And you had no explanation on why you killed it. A program working in an African-American community. You killed it. So for me, that's personal. And I couldn't reach the mayor. I had to chase him here in City Hall until I got him for 2 weeks to talk about this issue. And when I sit here at this table, that's heartbreaking to me. As an elected official, as a business owner, as a father to a daughter and a father to a son, and to a wife, to have this here existing in our city. So this is important. And the next piece, communications and living in a bubble. We don't know about how bad these systems are until we get a glimpse of going into them. And when I went in and had a glimpse of what was happening inside the school system, I was horrified. So my suggestion is, Madam Chairwoman, staying on the agenda of a superintendent, I would like to see someone who has vision. Someone, as you stated, will be competent. And he or she, the superintendent, must be instructional leader. And that means that he knows the most important job of the school district is to make sure students are learning and achieving at high levels. He or she is knowledgeable, is the best practices for maximizing students' achievements and supportive of teachers in the district. A great superintendent is an effective communicator. He or she must make a concerted effort to communicate the needs and accomplishments of the district in a variety of formats, through written reports, communication with the media, public meetings, and attendance to school events. A great superintendent is a good manager. He or she directs the administrators to accomplish the goals of the district, monitors their progress, and evaluate their performances. A great superintendent is a good listener. He or she must listen and take into account different viewpoints, various constituencies, and then make the best decision. A great superintendent is not afraid to risk or make a commitment. An average superintendent might set goals that are either vague or easily achieved, but a great superintendent would not be afraid to boldly set goals, such as the majority of third graders will be able to read by the end of the school year, and then put the programs and resources in place to achieve those goals. And lastly, a great superintendent is flexible. He or she needs to be able to manage the politics of the job, to adapt to new board members, changes in the state funding and changes in the community while not sacrificing the district's vision. A great superintendent takes a collaborative rather than a confrontational approach. And lastly, Madam Chairwoman, I'd ask that this board, you had a meeting in my neighborhood, you never took the opportunity to communicate with me ahead of time so that we could work together in partnership. And if we are truly, Madam Chairwoman, to make our school district a strong school district, one that is really talking about educating kids and sincere about it, meaning that who you select and the people around that superintendent, their sense of sanity and stability last upon how soon we can improve this district so that we can start bringing new families in the city of Cleveland and rebuilding this neighborhoods that have been far torn away. And if we have a good educational system in this neighborhood, it is a great tool for people like me and my colleagues who sit at this table to try to talk about how we bring in new families. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Does anyone want to respond to Councilman Jones?
Through the chair to the council member, I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for your input. Made note of all of these things. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Last but not least, I have Councilman Kelly.
To the chair and to the board. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. It's really important that there's a communication with the public servants, the council people, which I am a public servant now. I've been an activist my whole life. I'm raised, worshiped, and work here in the city of Cleveland my whole life. Each one of you are heroines and heroes. Brother Hurd, I imagine 18 years ago your hair was a little darker. 18 years of bi-monthly meetings and more than that for not a penny. Thank you for your service, honestly. There is nothing more important in this town than education, in my opinion. I'm very blue-collar the way I look at things. We need good jobs. Safety comes above everything, obviously, but on my bookends, it's education and maybe a superior airport to bring some good jobs here, the way I look at things here. My colleagues said everything probably I could have said a lot more passionately and a lot more eloquently than I might say it. But I will say the new superintendent, I've been here 9 years, I think you've done a great job of overseeing things that are much better than they were in the time I was fortunate enough to work for CMSD. I think one of the best things about Brother Gordon was that he was approachable. And when I'm looking for a new superintendent, some of the things that my colleague says, which are formal and education-wise, I really think that, I scribbled a few notes, we need somebody that's welcoming, okay? That's approachable. Eric was approachable. That's important when you're out at an event or something, you feel you can walk up to the CEO and just talk to him, not like they're above you, And I need a man or woman that believes, okay, whether it's vision or not, and I need that belief to be visible and in his face or her face and in their actions. Right now, we're at a pivotal point here. We're losing somebody who's done a lot of things here. And I come on board, and Brother Hurd will tell you, we didn't pass a school levy in this city 16 straight years. I got the gig over at CMSD because I helped pass the first levy about 10 years ago. We've had COVID. We call Biden bucks. We've got utility help. It will be difficult to get our citizens to vote for another levy again with how they're strapped without success, folks. And, part of that success is what this new CEO will do in conjunction with council. Each one of us here is public servants to the ward. We know our people. My ward is what they call low mod, which means 95% of it is low income. Okay? But each one of those parents wants their children to have a superior education and go beyond them. I can tell you that. Well, the only other thing maybe I'd like is, I just saw Hamilton last time I was in there. We need a superintendent that, what Burr says is nonstop, okay? I mean, I'm at Orange Theory at 5 a.m. and I'm working late at night, okay? I want somebody that's work as hard as me for my ward that's going to work for the students of this city, all right? And I appreciate all the work you've done here, and I have faith in our new mayor that he's going to want a lot of the things that you're going to find here. I'm going to tell you, I've never seen so many young people clamor around a mayor in my life. That he's really given our young students hope. So I hope that we can put some of the things in place to make that believable. And part of that is we need to really interact with more of the entities in this town to have our students come right out and go to work there. I work skyscrapers. I'm a 45-year member of Local 310. It's a great job. It gives pride. You get health benefits. I raised 4 children, single dad. Okay, I could walk a beam 60 stories in the air and do a mean French braid. All right, not too many construction workers can do that. And we need to prepare our kids for that. We have to, not everybody goes to college. I just need people from those jobs to be around to let them students know that this is a great job and a great livelihood. And that's it. You're all heroes and heroines. I appreciate all your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and I do want to echo your sentiments about CEO Eric Gordon. I think he was great, and he did what he could with the limited resources that he had. So that is just my opinion. But last but not least, that is me, and I know you guys had a hard stop at 3, so I'm going to email you a lot of my input and feedback. And I know you may agree that my colleagues did a great job in providing feedback about the new CEO. And once again, to my colleagues, if there's additional information you would like to provide, we could email it to Ms. Rosen or maybe any of the board members if you guys want to leave your contact information. So I would just add, just really quick, qualities of a new CEO that I believe should possess is love. Our kids need love, compassion, definitely vision, have integrity. And I believe his biggest challenge is going to be building that relationship with our families from the district, and really understanding, and I want to echo the importance of the CEO being ingrained in our community and really understanding the social challenges and the trauma that our families are facing. I don't think education should be separated from, what families go through in the household. Most of our kids spend a lot of time in school, so to be able to identify, through the CEO or teachers that this child is facing something at home is important, and really identifying that. And I just kind of want to share a story. Like I said, I grew up in CMSD school. I lived right by Waverly School, which is located on 54th off of Bridge, and that was my community center. I had a lot of things going on at home, domestic violence and so forth, so that was my escape. Was going to school and helping teachers. They would give me volunteer work, and I would go play there. And there was social workers at that time, so they were able to identify that I was living in not such a healthy environment, and that my mom was really not making ends meet. And so they were going to my house and really linking us to resources. I don't believe that is happening now. So I'm just curious, I'm suggesting that the CEO really understands about putting a plan in place to really address these social economic issues that our families are facing. And then for me, as a councilwoman of Ward 14, I serve 43% Latinos, and we are having newcomers. So we have Arabics and, just different nationalities. Has become like the international hub of the city. So maybe having a CEO that really understands different culture and culturally sensitive to these families. I know, I'm not sure how you market it to families that were non-English speaking, and I'm not only speaking on Spanish, but I know that newcomers, right, the refugee community, there's a disconnect with that, and it's very difficult, and I know this as someone that has to send her stuff bilingual, but there's always an extra cost for that. However, this community normally gets left out, and we don't obtain any input from them. So I guess I have a question is, have you had a chance to reach out to families that are non-English speakers that not only Spanish, and then, and then just the feedback of the CEO should be culturally sensitive to our families in the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. Yes, we were able to have interpreters at every single one of our events, and we provided opportunities to participate in person, but also virtually. The one community that I was concerned about was Spanish-speaking families, and so with the support of the district and with the support of Esperanza, I was able to meet with 20 community members last night to have a Spanish-only conversation and to get their voices into the process. So we were really grateful for that opportunity, learned a lot, and definitely your point is very well taken. Yeah.
Thank you. And once again, Arabic community and newcomers. So when is the search going to end? I think you mentioned this early on, but not sure if I caught that.
Yeah, the hope is to be able to announce the CEO by early May at the latest.
Okay.
So the search is ongoing. Our interest in hearing from stakeholders continues the entire process and continues to inform. So we're very open. If any council member wants additional opportunities for us to meet with members of your community, your constituents, with your support, we really welcome those opportunities at any point through the process.
Got it. Well, I definitely want to thank you all for taking time out to meet with council members today. I'm hoping to get a commitment. Once the CEO is hired, can we have meet with council members, bring them to the table? Just for your knowledge, and you may know this is a brand new committee. We didn't have education before. So when you see the passion or you get all the questions for council members, it's because historically we haven't been able to ask those questions at the table. So we're moving the right way. So just kind of be patient with us. But we do bring a lot to the table, as we're always, in our community, listening to our families, getting those calls. So just really rely on us for any input and feedback, or any assistance that you need to make the district even better for our families. So I didn't know if you have any closing remarks, and then I will get you out of here on time.
Yes, to the chair, I'll be very brief. Again, to remind everyone that the school board meeting is this evening at 6:30. You can attend in person. It's at William Rainey Harper.
Where's it at?
William Rainey Harper. Or you can tune in online.
What's that address?
And
5515 Ira Avenue.
5515?
Ira.
I-R-A.
Yep.
Beautiful Ward 13.
Yeah.
I'm going to come over there and visit your ward.
All right. We will be there at 6:30, and it's my understanding that it'll be live streamed, and that the live streaming of all of our meetings stay on the website for, is it 90 days? Indefinitely. So you can go back and look at our school board meetings from 6 months ago, and this one will be the same. So if you miss it tonight, when you're watching the Super Bowl at halftime, you can tune in and catch the meeting.
Yeah. And
And thank you for the invitation again.
thank you. And Mr. Hurd, these board meetings are open to public, right?
Yep.
So we could attend
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are public meetings.
There, we got that. Okay, and you know what? Let me add one more thing, Asian community. I don't want to miss that, but that is also a huge population
Yep.
in our city of Cleveland. So once again, thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, follow up, just get with Brooke, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to belabor the point. I think a lot of good points came across.
Okay, now we're gonna move to the legislation part of the committee. And I want to bring up Chief Sonia Pryor Jones, and we're gonna hear ordinance number 99-2023. It reads as follows. An emergency ordinance directing a portion of the city coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund payment to respond to the public health emergency through the support and development of a comprehensive long-term violence prevention strategy in response to an increase in violence since the pandemic, and that improves the public sector capacity and workforce for an amount not to exceed $998,600 to be encumbered March 3rd, 2021, and ending December 31st, 2024. Hello, Chief. How are you?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman.
Good afternoon. And I have had a chance, but if you guys want to introduce yourself, that would be helpful. We have new colleagues here, or maybe. No, we don't. Everyone knows. But I don't know you, so.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman. Dan Flannery. I'm a professor at the Mandel School at Case Western Reserve University, where I direct the Begun Center for Violence Prevention. Grew up on Lawn Avenue. Grandfather Joe Flannery was a member of City Council back in the 1950s or 60s, representing the west side of Cleveland.
Good. Thank you for being here. And go ahead, Chief. You could start your presentation. And if you want to reintroduce yourself, there's no problem.
Oh, good. I'm Dale England with the Cleveland Foundation.
Yes, okay.
To the Chairwoman, we just have a few things we'd like to speak with the council about today as it relates to this ordinance, a few opening thoughts, and then to talk with you about the materials that we've provided. Okay. And so first and foremost, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to speak with council and the way that council has been partnering with us around the city's work as it relates to violence prevention. We had Councilwoman Howes attend a trip with us to Milwaukee to see firsthand how they have done work there. Councilman Starr and Councilwoman Gray also engaging with us and thinking about how we identify opportunities for young people to get engaged in violence prevention planning efforts. And then I also want to acknowledge Councilwoman Spencer, who recently with myself along with other city officials have all come together to support the refugee community and the things that they're doing as it relates to violence prevention. And of course, you, Councilwoman Santana, for your work around youth development and summit efforts. But today, I come to the table asking City Council to partner with the administration and our community partners, like the ones who are at the table, as well as some of the ones who are here in audience today. Partners like Mr. Ward and his violence interruption work, Policy Matters, and all they're doing around crisis care, as well as partners like Cleveland Peacemakers and the interruption work that they're doing, as well as people like Change Seekers and residents who came out and provided public comment previously. The investment of ARPA funds would allow us to engage approximately 5,000 city residents in an intentional design process for the city's first comprehensive multi-year violence prevention strategic plan. This opportunity is a really important one, as I'm joined by the two partners here with us today because of the work that they've been doing with us around the Cleveland Thrive grant that we received. This $2 million Department of Justice grant is really to support community-based violence prevention efforts. And if we receive the support from this ordinance, the city will leverage that $2 million investment from the Department of Justice that will be used to help us coordinate and provide training around community-based violence interrupters, provide $870,000 in funding to proven programs and promising practices based on community input, and help us with the unique needs that we face in this post-COVID environment that we're living in now. Over the years, Cleveland has developed plans like Impact 25, the Cleveland Plan, which is not the one related to the school district, all to address violence. While we have benefited from those past efforts, today we want to center the people who have the most, who experience the most harm, and could also help us provide more thoughtful solutions by taking the time to hear their stories and co-design new interventions and programs with them that are based on their point of view, knowledge, and need. The one-time ARPA funding offers us a unique and once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest in long-term vision and direction for reducing the harmful causes of violence across our city. Use of these funds will be aligned with one of the eligible uses defined by the federal government and the SLFRF rule, which states, Treasury recognizes the importance of comprehensive approaches to challenges like violence. The final rules are eligible for the use of community violence intervention programs in all communities. Given the increased rate of violence during the pandemic, Treasury has determined that preventing and responding to violence is responsive to the impacts of the pandemic in all communities, including capacity building efforts. So today we come here before you, hoping to have the support, the continued support of council to pass this ordinance. The packet that you have in front of you includes information about the types of violence that we're all up against. This is based on all of the research. The packet also includes a little information about where we stand as a city when we compare Cleveland and the way that we've addressed violence along with metropolitan areas. It also talks a little bit about the role of PIO as an office. I know we'll talk more about that at budget hearings, but just to give you a sense of the all-of-government approach that the mayor is taking as it relates to addressing violence. The PIO office is doing all of the original work that it was doing under the last administration while also stewarding the strategic approach that we want to take moving ahead. So I'm going to pause, and my colleagues with me also have some comments.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee. We all know that addressing the root causes of violence is very complex. Although the Cleveland Foundation has supported public safety and community violence prevention in the past, we made a renewed commitment to working with a wider range of partners over the last few years. In 2022, we worked with a number of local partners, including Peacemakers, to participate in a national gun violence cohort where we looked at best practices across the country. Several of those are showing results during this historically volatile period in cities like Newark, Baltimore, Denver, St. Paul, and Charlotte. All of these cities are investing in both immediate interventions, which we know are important, but also long-term strategies to change their communities for the better. Each is taking the time and providing the financial resources to invest in a blueprint, a strategic plan that anchors the entire community under one vision, coordinates efforts, and creates shared accountability measures for reducing violence. We know this is not just about policing. We have to involve our community in all of this work. In Newark, they saw crime drop as much as 70% during the pandemic. In Milwaukee, they've seen the quality of care for gunshot victims increase through the forging of new relationships amongst emergency room surgeons and community interrupters. In Baltimore, they passed an ordinance that requires the development and update of a biennial violence prevention plan and an ordinance requiring trauma-informed care training for all city staff. In Charlotte, their strategic plan has led to a beyond policing approach and includes root cause interventions around affordable housing, employment, and transportation. These cities scored the national average of 25 or more on the 2022 City Violence Prevention Index, where Cleveland only scores a 12. The Cleveland Foundation is committed to working with partners, including the city and the city council, and investing in near-term and long-term interventions to address the root causes of violence in our community. And we understand the implications this issue has on the Foundation's core mission to enhance the lives of all residents in Greater Cleveland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Begun Center has been working for the past 25 years as a partner with the City of Cleveland to conduct applied community-based research and evaluation services on many of their violence prevention community-based initiatives. We participate in the development and evaluation of these best practices. We have 3 Ohio-supported centers of excellence to train social workers and other providers in evidence-based programs. We are the identified evaluation partner required by the Department of Justice for the Cleveland Thrive Initiative. But for the past 6+ years, we've also, I'm part of a team embedded with your Division of Police to assist them with the information they're required to gather as part of their settlement agreement with the Department of Justice. And we are the research and evaluation partner for many community-based violence prevention efforts throughout the city and county to try to address this complicated social problems. Our role is to really ensure that the initiative involves community-driven, youth voice-directed efforts to address violence and not just be an academic exercise or an intellectual exercise that occurs in a vacuum. We're also responsible to make sure that we gather information on relevant impacts and outcomes to address the issue effectively and to make changes when we need to make changes. This requires a sustained, long-term effort. There are no quick fixes in this space, and the issue of violence needs to be addressed in multiple systems and at multiple levels. So that's really our role. We support the request, the ARPA funds to complement the grant-generated support that's being provided to the city. And we're encouraged that this will continue the persistent efforts of the many partners involved in this initiative to affect real change in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chief, are you going through the presentation or you just?
And so, to the chair, I can go through elements of the presentation before you. And so you just heard from Dan Flannery from the Begun Center talk about the complexities around the issues surrounding violence. And so this first slide talks to you a little bit about the different types of prevention in community. This is particularly important because often when we think about violent crime and violence happening in neighborhoods, we tend to focus on the immediate issue at hand or the incident at hand. And we don't always spend time thinking about preparing for or providing programs around those things that occur beforehand. And so you see that listed here. This next slide talks a little bit about where we stand. You may have heard in Dale's comments that when you look at the 2022 City Violence Prevention Index, Cleveland scored a 12. They did this scoring system on 50 metropolitan areas that are relatively similar across the nation, all challenged by issues of violence. And Cleveland scored a 12, and a lot of that has to do with our lack of coordination. And so that is that slide. And then the next slide speaks to our all-of-government approach. Violence is very complex. It has lots of elements to consider. And so there are several lead departments across the city that are working on this issue. Public safety recently heard from the Community Relations Board. They do a number of things engaging system-involved youth, as well as a lot of the early work to support residents and things like street clubs and overall engagement with the community. The Department of Public Health has really been leading us and thinking about making sure that we have a health-centered approach and a public health approach in the way that we think about violence, and they also collect a lot of the data that reflects what is and is not happening with citizens when we think about not just gun violence, but also violence against women and girls and youth-involved violence. And then the Mayor's Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity, which is an office in my area, and we are really stewarding this process. How do we begin to support the city in bringing all the resources that we have together, setting some clear and common goals together, and making sure that we have a strong strategy for doing this work. You also have our neighborhood resource and recreation centers, which PIO partners with deeply, supporting them in changing the culture by supporting trauma-informed care and also expanding programs and services, not just the traditional gym and swim, but things like STEM, things like tutoring. A number of the things that we've heard council members mention are important. Parent education classes, really starting to get at the root of a lot of the issues that families face. We also house our social support specialists, our social workers in those recreation centers, making them available to support families. And then, of course, there's the traditional role of public safety and a police department that is also listed there. And so you can see on this next slide, it also shows a little bit more detail what the work of the Mayor's Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity includes. This next slide talks to some of our collective efforts. One of the first things we did as we began to think about why the importance of a strategy was to find out what it is that we're already doing or planning to do. And so we did an internal landscape analysis of all of the different programs that are in place that might be identified as a violence prevention strategy or program. And so those are listed there.
Go ahead.
Madam Chairwoman, looking at some of these pieces that are here, they're no longer effective or efficient. Some of them don't even work. So I just want to put that on your note if you're using that as a part of your whole proposition.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide really speaks to the strategic framework. And so when we look at entities like World Health Organization, CDC, they have very broad definitions around what violence is and what it includes. When we spent time thinking about what was happening specifically in Cleveland, the framework that we came up with focuses in 3 areas of violence: gun violence, violence against women and girls, as well as youth-involved violence. And the way that we want to get at addressing these issues in this framework includes more intervention and prevention strategies, which really get to root causes, a thoughtful communications and engagement process, which is why having a ability to get out, talk to residents across our entire city is so critical. And then also a social justice and public safety lens based on some of the things that the city has grappled with in its past. The next slide gives you a high-level understanding of what is actually in the CDI PI grant. That's the Department of Justice grant for $2 million. We have 3 bodies of work, or 3 deliverables, if you will. The first one is coordinating our community-based violence interruption organizations, providing them with some training, helping support them to come up with shared outcomes as well as targeted footprints. The next is engaging community in a process to build that blueprint that was referenced earlier. And then the last piece is really to make sure that we're also putting dollars into interventions and programs, ones that already work, as well as ones that might be promising ideas that come from the residents themselves. Because again, they're closer to the issue. We think they're gonna have really great solutions. After that, you'll see a number of our collaborative partners, because we are taking a comprehensive approach. Those partners include people from our health system, nonprofit organizations, the education community, and we want to make sure that residents end up being a part of that partnership list as well. This next slide talks a little bit about where we're headed. And so when we think about a public health approach, when we think about an approach that's addressing root causes, we want to think about the economic well-being of our community. So a number of things that you've already funded, like workforce investment, that's going to really be helpful to us as we move this strategy forward. We're thinking about built environment. We are constantly hearing from community members that the way their neighborhoods look also matter in the way that they feel and experience their communities. We're also thinking about social networks. You talked a little bit earlier today about how important it is for young people to engage in a wide variety of activities and programs, because we know that builds out their social networks, and we know the impact in a positive way that social networks have on mental health. And then there's civic infrastructure. And that one, I would say, is really key to the proposal ordinance that's before you. Because if we want our residents to be a part of the civic infrastructure, we want to give them an opportunity to make very important civic decisions along with us. And then this next slide is simply the ask. It speaks to the $988,600 request and what kinds of things we will spend those dollars on. We want to get out in community and actually engage a wide variety of residents based on affinity groups and other ways that they sit across your wards. We want to make sure that we're doing a good job in communicating and marketing. That's something that we talked at this table about before. That is a real challenge at the city. We don't have the capacity and the ways to do it. And then, of course, there'll be the final research and publication of the plan itself. So there's a tangible plan that we all have that we're all engaged around.
Okay.
And this last one is just a little bit of a timeline.
Midterm loan. Chief, you didn't include the budget, right? The breakdown budget?
I did.
Okay, you did. Is there a copy?
That is here.
Oh, you have it? Okay. And
It's attached to the.
Okay.
It's the last part.
It's the last. I think.
So if you look at the, you can take
Hold on a
mine.
second. Okay, so.
That is it, the ARPA packet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right here, Councilman Jones.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
Got it?
attached.
All right, you got it? Oh, there we go. Okay, are you finished with your presentation, Chief?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a public comment, I have a sign up for public comment, and so at this time, I want to bring up Pete Van Lier, and I hope I said that correct. But Lear, okay. If you could come to the table, we have 3 minutes, public comment section.
Thank you. Thank you all. Chair, I don't have a whole lot to say. I just, I'm here to, I already testified before full council or gave public comment, and I'm in support of this plan. I think overall, from my perspective, one of the most important things is the community, I mean, obviously the community engagement piece is really essential to looking at how we change and transform public safety in our city. As you may know, I've been working with, through Policy Matters, thank you, through Policy Matters and a growing coalition in Ohio, in Cleveland and around the state around non-police response, and looking how we can make our city safer for everyone by sending people besides police, civilian responders, to address mental health, behavioral health issues, people who are unhoused, that kind of thing. So I mostly want to take the opportunity to give you, to talk about the importance of community engagement. We at Policy Matters, along with REACH, a local grassroots group, we did a survey over the summer with through NEOC, and we had people go out in the community, spend 20, 30 minutes talking to people individually, filling out a survey, looking at their what their perceptions and views are on first responders, emergency responders. And I think the richness of this, I hope I have copies for everybody, just gives you, hopefully it gives you a sense of the importance of engaging the community and really understanding how the community views these issues and what will work in Cleveland versus anywhere else, right? I mean, every city is unique. So we had our interviews going out, the NEOC interviews going out in homeless shelters, social service agencies, bus and rapid stops, libraries, and anywhere they found people they knew or who, you know, and these were people who lived experience with homelessness. And it really gave a pretty complex snapshot of their views. Like 50% said largely positive views of first responders, including police and EMTs and others. About 30% said negative. But what was really revealing was when we got into the open-ended questions, and there's a lot of room for improvement there. And if you look at this, I'm happy to pass this out. One quote we highlight is, "Talk to me like a regular person, not a criminal." And that's the kind of input we got from people, you know, like, treat me, talk to me, like, just really understand where I'm coming from. And so I feel like I just wanted to give you this as an example of the kind of results you get when you really talk to the community very deeply. And that's really about it. I mean, happy to answer your questions or, you know, at this point or in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lear, and I'll definitely take some time to review this. So are you saying that Policy Matters have done some engagement around violence prevention and have data already?
Yeah, that's the results. So that's the first phase of our survey. We're working on other phases with different populations, you know, in the people struggling with mental health issues, substance use, different populations in Cleveland, you know, marginalized neighborhoods, youth and LGBT community. But that's the first phase. So it's not necessarily connected to what the city is doing, but I think what the city is doing is very important in terms of that effort at community engagement. And so I'm just trying to give you a sense of, like, when you engage the community, you get these kind of rich, you know, really deep and meaningful results.
On this one, okay. So essentially what you're saying is this initiative will add more value to what's already exists. Chief, do you want to respond in any?
Sure, to the chair. I think also the work that Mr. Van Leer and his community has done is very specific to mental health and care response. And when we think about violence prevention as a whole, you got to think of it like a whole meal, right? It's a meal that you've set on the table. It includes, I love barbecue, so I'm going to use that example. It includes your favorite barbecue picnic, right? You've got your coleslaw, you've got your ribs, you've got your stuff for the vegan community as well. And so his work that he's already done is one of those dishes on the meal table. But when we think about violence prevention comprehensively, mental health is a piece, policing is a piece, Youth engagement and development is a piece. Domestic violence issues are a piece. All of those make up our table.
Got it. And then Councilman Jones, you had a point for
Well,
Mr.
first,
Van
I'd
Leer.
like to, Madam Chair, I'd like to thank the gentleman. I've kind of like perused through his pamphlet really quickly. And one of the things I would like to ask is, you know, oftentimes as elected officials, we're so busy with everything. And so sometimes when we get the legislation, we have maybe 2 days or 3 days to kind of like hurry up and try to make sense of what's being asked. And, you know, sometimes 2 days, 3 days, getting the information just is not enough time to really ask the kind of questions and deep probing questions to come to some kind of understanding of, will this be effective? You know, what, as you have been in the research here with this information, what are some of the programs that really work? Because I've sat here for 5 years now, and the administration has passed off on millions and millions and thousands of dollars into prevention stuff, and that the numbers still continue to go up. So what are some of the programs that you would say that would be efficient and effective if we were to deploy them in our city today to stop crime or to prevent it?
Well, I'm, through the chair to Councilman, I'm not sure I'm an expert on all programs out there, as
Just one or
the
two.
chief said, you know, like this, the mental health piece that we're doing, the care response is one aspect. If we look at other cities that are doing that kind of work, it seems like from Cincinnati to Baltimore, a lot of cities around the country are doing specifically that, you know, sending people besides police, civilian responders to help people in crisis, essentially. So I think that's one example. But there's from my perspective, anything we can do that looks at how do you stop violence before it happens? How do you prevent it? How do you intervene when things get violent? Anything that we can do in that regard there's a lot of programs that are showing effectiveness in that. But as the chief said, my area of focus right now is this one aspect of a bigger picture.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. And Mr. Van Leer, so this plan, are you interested, is Policy Matter going to be one of those partners that are going to help with violent prevention part?
To the chairwoman, yes, we want to partner with all of the agencies and organizations that are effectively doing work now and want to be a part of this work with us, and particularly our residents. We want to make sure they have a place at this planning table.
And then last for my questions, I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have questions. Okay. How many residents were surveyed for
There was
this?
177, Chair, 177 people were interviewed for this particular project. And again, we're working on subsequent phases of that.
Okay, and I haven't had a chance to review it all, of course, I just got it, but different throughout the whole city of Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So I have just really quick, Councilman Starr, and remember, this is just for the public comment piece of it. Okay, this is the public comment piece of it. This is
My
for just
questions are
overall?
going to be for the overall piece.
Okay.
Yep.
Me too.
So nothing for the public comment piece of it? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Van
thank you
Leer.
all
I
very much.
appreciate your time. Okay, so now back to the list too. So I'll just, very brief, I had a chance to meet with you, Chief, and so you answered many of my questions, but some new questions that came up. This reminds me of kind of the PB type of model, right? Participatory budgeting, where you're basically doing some outreach and engagement and allowing residents to give input on some solutions around violent prevention.
To the chairwoman, yes, this engagement process is to include residents in the planning of a violence prevention plan.
Got it. And I think you answered this question already, but just overall, just knowing that public safety in general, everything has its own section. Is there a plan besides what he provided to us? Is there any other public safety plans in place right now that you will be aligning with this part of the violent prevention?
To the chairwoman, a part of the work that we'll do in this process is to take a look at all of the violence prevention related plans that are in existence. We did some of that in the writing of the Department of Justice grant, so you even heard me mention older plans like Impact 25. and the Cleveland plan. We will also take a deeper dive at the department level and see what different colleagues at the city are already putting together. We also acknowledge that there are things that different council members are doing in their community. For example, I know you have a strategic plan that you invested in. We'll take a look at that data and that information as well and see what things are there that can help us with the solve that we're looking for.
Got it. Which brings to my other question. And the reason I brought that question up is just I want our residents to understand, if they're watching here, the public, to know that there are safety plans in place. I don't want them to think, oh, you didn't have a plan this whole time, and now you're thinking about crime when crime has been an issue, right? For a long time. So I just kind of wanted to emphasize that there are some plans in place. There's data out there, right? We've got input by residents that they want cameras and lighting and so forth. These are things that the city of Cleveland have been working on. So that's why I asked that question. My other question is, as you said, I created a master plan. So two things that I found was very important with this master plan was ensuring that the city of Cleveland adopted this plan. It's our living document for 10 years. It's our GPS, it's our playbook for 10 years. So any development that takes place in the city of Cleveland that pertains to Ward 14 must be aligned with this master plan. Is that your vision for this violent prevention strategy?
To the chairperson, you're exactly right. Our vision with this plan, the mayor's office in partnership with council and all of our community partners, is one vision. I'm thinking of one particular movie. It was like one vision, one sound, right? But one band. The whole idea is that right now there are lots of things. What we want to do is build a comprehensive plan that is long-term, that we all can be accountable to, and a vision that we can all follow through on.
Thank you, Chief. So no matter who's here or not, who's elected, they have to abide by this plan for 10 years, so forth. So any legislation council listens to that has to do with violent prevention, we have to refer back to this plan once it's finalized. Is that the overall vision?
To the council, to the chairwoman. Yes, our overall vision is we will all align under one plan, use it as our GPS, and use it as a way to hold ourselves accountable over time.
Okay. And then just a quick budget question. I know, don't we have maybe printing capabilities in-house? I know we have printing here, 100,000 at $1 each, which is 100,000 for printing material. What type of material, and can we do that in-house, or is that the cost in-house?
To the council, chairwoman, we do have an in-house printing company that will likely be utilized, but there are not current budget dollars already set up for volume at this level. And what it does is, some of us are old school, right? And we need the plan that we can flip through, write in. We live in a community where there's significant digital divide. And so we want to make sure that we have enough of the printed plans once we have one established that it's accessible to everyone.
Got it, thank you. And I'm sure my colleagues will have other budget questions, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. We're still at a 10-minute max, so I have first up Councilman Starr.
Chairwoman gonna say 10 minutes, then give me the mic. Okay. No, thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you, Chief, as well as Cleveland Foundation and everyone for coming to the table. Violence is a real issue in our city, and it's been something we've been dealing with for quite some time. The spike and the rise in gun violence and the numbers have shown. So some of the questions I definitely would like to ask is also about data as well. I know we have 7 organizations, I think, based on the presentation that we're looking to work with through this initiative. Do we have a list of who these organizations are through the chair to the chief?
To Councilman Starr, I believe the 7 that you're referencing is actually the neighborhoods.
Okay.
And so the DOJ grant funding, when we wrote that grant, it required us to be specific about where we would do the engagement work. And so we identified 7 neighborhoods based on data in the city of Cleveland where we would do that work. That was Buckeye Woodland, Central, Fairfax, Kinsman Union Miles, Mount Pleasant, North Broadway, and St. Clair Superior.
And that's for the $998,600,000 that we're here.
The funding from the DOJ grant already identified those neighborhoods, so the portion of the grant from DOJ to support engagement supports it in those neighborhoods. This request of $988,000 will allow us to go beyond those neighborhoods and hit the entire city in our engagement process.
So overall, $2.9 million is for the engagement piece that we're trying to do today.
Overall, if we're adding the DOJ dollars of $2 million and the $988,000 that's requested in this ordinance, it allows for engagement. It allows for us to cover the cost of paying for intervention programs, best practices and next practices, and it allows for us to support the coordination and development of the community violence interrupter organizations that currently exist. It also covers the cost of 2 staff members.
Okay. You know what? That's why I like you, Chief, through the chair. I love Chief. Chief, break it down. Another part I would just say, when you talk about the violence prevention organizations, do we have a list of those organizations that the administration as well as everyone is working with to bring this to the forefront or to make sure we deliver on this?
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, we have what's referred to as a strategic partnership leadership team, which was required by the Department of Justice grant. And that team includes 8 organizations, and I can tell you who they are.
You could just get those over to our staff so we can be able to get that to all the members of the council and this committee. I asked that question because one of the things I learned when you're a young buck and your first year in council, a lot of these nonprofit organizations come to the table and they don't be doing nothing with the money. So I'm really interested in seeing what these 8 organizations. Now, me personally, I definitely, I'm always transparent and I don't know how to politic, and sometimes it get me always in trouble, but I believe I work with Cleveland Peacemaker Alliance, the new Peacemaker Alliance, not none of that old stuff when they was doing all that crazy stuff. Under the leadership of Executive Director Watkins, I love the direction and the work and the passion and the actual work that her team does. But obviously, funding, you get what you fund. Then there's other organizations that I've heard of but never heard of them, meaning they always around for the table or a part of this money, but they don't do nothing. Meaning, I'm interested for us as a council to really get an overview list of who these organizations that the administration and your office is working with. Also, have we identified some data off the work that they've currently done? Meaning, do they really have a track record, or is there just a new organization popped up because they know we're looking to do some prevention work? Or they've been like, I've been around so long, I know something when you ain't did nothing. And I just want us to be very open and mindful that we need those who are not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. And what I mean by that is, when I think of violence prevention, I think of neighborhoods that was redlined and they were strategically done this way. I think of my neighborhood that I grew up in. I deal with a lot of different issues in my neighborhood, but one of the things I never understood is how guys had to go through prison to come home, and then everybody wanted to drive CDLs and make a living. I think of violence prevention meaning opportunities and resources. How do I get those guys that I grew up with play football that's on 30th still hustling off the corner? How do I go into Rainbow Terrace in Garden Valley neighborhood and work with a Felice and a Miss Bridget Jackson to actually help improve the quality of life and help bring some resources, case managers. As we started talking about the mental health, Brendan Glass, I know we went and did a visit, and I do support her program. How do we get that more into our community as a part of a preventive way? A guy named former council member, Zachary, used to always get up and he said, nothing stops a bullet but a job. So when we think of preventive work, I would love to see what is our holistic approach that we're going to do the research on. But some things I'm like, we know about, and how can we start to move the needle to get those things addressed? I believe that the research is very much important. But I know that we haven't had a real winter yet, and any day the sun is going to be shining. And if we're doing the research, it's still going to be issues going on without the strategy for the outreach. I am, like I said, I'm not going to be shy away from it. I do support the work that Cleveland Peacemaker Alliance does. The Miss Maisha Watkins, she's boots on the ground, but she's limited resources. Her whole organization that she have, I personally need that in Ward 5 Central itself. Not even talking about Kinsman, not even talking about Broadway area, or even parts of downtown area that I represent, or things like that. So I definitely do support the violence prevention strategy, but I definitely, Chair, would like to say, I would love to see the data of who we're looking to partner with so we can vet as council members, because I don't want to see us allocate almost $2 million came from DOJ, and then another $900,000 to a plan where we got people that me and my colleagues, like, this organization ain't even the one, number one, doing the work in my own neighborhood, but they're at the table to get a contract. And that is something I definitely would like to take for us to look at.
Just really quick, Councilman Starr, are you talking about professional service, like who's going to do that, who's going to do the engagements transcript, and analysts, research and writing, like really hone in on that?
And then also including those violence prevention organizations that we plan to vet, work out. You know, I would love to see what they're going to do, because what happens is, Chief, and I know you in the city, and Doc is as well, but sometimes in the grassroots, these people don't even be there, but they're getting paid, and they've been getting paid through the city, through grants, and they just haven't yet delivered, maybe because their strategic approach is not there, or they probably need some help with their structure, or they probably need to change some of the people they have in their organization and leadership so they can be able to deliver. So I definitely would say this to the chairwoman: until we see this, I don't know how comfortable I am with supporting it. Now, I support the actual work, but I want to really know who is going to be the two people that's hired, possibly, or when that opens up, which is the violence prevention organizations we're going to work with, what is the actual communication marketing plan. I know I see some money in dollars amount to certain things, but how do we roll it out as well? I know I'm going to be working with you, Chief, for sure. But I'm just trying to really, really make sure I see the plan, understand the plan, and support the plan wholeheartedly, to make sure we get this issue that's been gun violence addressed. And I pass it to Chief through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilman Starr. So I want to sort of help to do the delineation where it needs to be done. And so what we have before you today is an ARPA request specifically for $998,600 that is about the process, right? The process of engaging more residents so that we have their voices and their ideas that are a part of our overall plan that we're going to build. Some of the things that you've identified as areas of concern, those sit within the resources from the Department of Justice, right? And so the job posting, which I'd be happy to share with all of you, the job postings are a part of that. Some of the money for engagement across those 7 neighborhoods I mentioned is a part of that. And then a significant part of the money is a part of that in terms of supporting and providing dollars to violence interruption programs and interventions. That all lives within our city process, and so there is an administrative process in place. We have a very specific RFP process here at the City of Cleveland, and so none of those dollars will go out the door without people being vetted, without people writing proposals, without us following the process that the City of Cleveland has in place. So that stuff has some structure around it to address those kinds of concerns that you have. Another thing I want to elevate, because I think is really important, you mentioned, you know, we have a number of violence interrupter organizations that are doing great work, and then some other ones that maybe are not doing such great work. The beautiful part of this grant and one of its deliverables is working specifically to ensure that we're coordinating that body of interrupters, because a lot of them have not been working together over the years, getting along, you know, getting clear with one another who's really good at what, who really should handle what footprint. And so the DOJ grant dollars are going to help us to do some of that. And so I just want to make sure you all understand the decision that you're making for funding today is specific to a process around engagement that allows people across the city in your wards that you care for on a daily basis to be a part of the overall plan development.
I think that's good.
Yep, I think that is, I know my time just went up, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it on, Chair. But I thank you for that, because it hurts my heart when I see people getting paid and they fronting. It hurts, and what I mean by that is they just robbing the poor and just getting paid to do nothing. And there's some good organizations, like I said. I'd have said Cleveland Peacemaker Alliance a lot, and Ms. Watkins a lot as well. But I done been on the front line with some of these organizations. They don't show up when it's on 30th. When we talking about stuff happening in King County and Garden Valley, they ain't about around. But they used to be a part of organizations, and now they just freelance and got their own, like, they just faking the front. And I just want to make sure we really working together, and I want to support you, Chief, as well. And I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Starr. And next I have Councilman Slife.
Thank you, and Chief, I would like to take your reference to the movie Drumline and build off of it. So I will say I have a lot of questions and not about the spirit of what the intent of all of this is, but I will admit I am having a hard time understanding the entirety of this ecosystem. So, and there's a lot of people, organizations that understand the importance of this work, that are looking to get engaged in this work, that are engaged in this work, and the only way I can describe my reaction to it is it's everybody's got their instrument and they're all warming up. And it's important that they're warming up, but it sounds chaotic. And I guess my question is, who's the drum major? Who blows the whistle and starts the show? Because I'm confused as to who the number one point person is, even within City Hall, since there's so much overlap with community relations, with public safety, with your office. Who is helping to kind of curate all of this within this building and with all of our external partners? I saw Drumline, but
Through the chairwoman to Councilman Slife, I think that's a really fantastic analogy and way to look at it. And I'm a Bo fan kind of girl, so you're going to hear that a lot from me. But I think it really is, it depends on the day. Ultimately, all of us in the all of government approach report to the mayor, right? So he is our drum major. I think when we're looking at the layout of the wide range of systems that touch violence prevention, you really do have a different drum major at each point of those different parts of the ecosystem. You've got the social justice system. It's got a drum major. You've got policing and public safety, it's got a drum major. You've got mental health, it's got a drum major. I think we want to think about this like a conference of the bands, and we're bringing under this violence prevention plan all of those drum majors together and working with them in the network to say, this is how we're going to do this work moving ahead. This is our book of sheet music that we're going to all be playing together. And we need each of those drum majors to understand one set of vision and metrics so that when they're with their band, they're working from the same sheet. And right now, we don't have that. And so you are right, it is messy, everybody's warming up, but we believe putting together a citywide engagement process and plan will get us all in that same shared music book.
Way to rock the analogy.
I like the way you did.
Is it possible through the chair to get essentially not some sort of one pager that kind of outlines all that, though. Like these are kind of the buckets of the entirety of the ecosystem, because even, it's when you're a council member, or at least when you're this council member, legislation's getting thrown at you. So even having to step back and remember now, like, Ms. Watkins was at the table yesterday and is hopefully going down to finance after this to ask where her check is. But even trying to recall, okay, like the subtle nuances and what all the differences in these different programs, it would be helpful just to have that in one place, because the fear, the worry is that we end up duplicating resources, and that there's so many people eager to get involved that we end up building, end up building the infrastructure and don't get to the work soon enough. So if it's, I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, but just the scale of this issue and the number of players involved, I think it's something that I want to be able to have an elevator speech on, and I'm still struggling with it. Moving on from that, because I know we have time constraints. So the $2 million DOJ grant, we have a budget in front of us, and the budget is specific to the $998,000 ask. Would it be correct to say that the $2 million grant would essentially be this, but proportioned up? That where's a budget for how we're spending the $2 million grant is the first question.
Through the chair to Councilman Slife, that budget was provided to council when you all approved our ability to receive those funds, but I can't tell you what the buckets are, if that's helpful to you.
Is it the same, just to save you, is it the same buckets? And what caught my eye is there's the buckets in our presentation, but I believe it only adds up to $2.1 million of this page. Or $1.1 million, I'm sorry.
Through the chair to the councilman, that is correct. What is not listed there are things like the cost of staff, equipment and materials for staff, and the required travel that we have on the 3-year grant to engage with DOJ at the convenings that they host for grantees.
Okay. And then switching over to the budget in front of us for $998,000, is this essentially, so for example, facilitator compensation at $200 an hour, is that using the same facilitator through the federal grant? Is this, to what degree is this supplementing that direct program, and to what degree is it supplementing but separately from an accounting perspective?
Through the chair to Councilman Slife, this part of the $988,000 is giving us coverage beyond those 7 neighborhoods that I mentioned earlier on. So it allows us to instigate the same kind of engagement process we're hoping for, but across the entire city footprint.
So thank you. So for example, the facilitator compensation, are we looking to identify a new facilitator essentially for these ARPA dollars?
Through the chair to Councilman Slife, that part just always trips me up.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm okay with it. Yeah.
We have not identified a specific facilitator yet. Our desire is to engage as many residents in the process as possible, and we would put out an RFP for people to respond to, and then we would decide from there who is going to do that part of the work for us.
Okay. It's, Madam Chair, something that caught my eye and just a question, we have a lot of RFPs out for consulting services, and part of me, it's a great time to be a consultant in Cleveland. To what degree do we have these resources in-house? I know we have an Office of Urban Analytics. Like, at what point does it begin to make sense to start to almost have our in-house consulting team rather than farm? Because I mean, $200 an hour, that's like the cost of an attorney, and it's not that these individuals wouldn't do a great job, but it's I think that would be a shocking hourly rate for many residents of the city of Cleveland, and trying to understand if there's ways, kind of economies of scale, that we can have cost savings given all of the efforts we're doing to grasp large issues.
Through the chair to the councilman, I think from the perspective that that I hold and from the research that we've done in looking at this violence prevention work nationally, when you think about facilitators coming into communities doing this kind of work, a couple of things you want to consider. One, what is their understanding and how to engage said community, right? And said community might be African American males, LGBTQ youth, right? Seniors. So we have to keep those things in mind. And then I think there's also the opportunity to consider those who are working in the space and understand it deeply when we're thinking about the violence prevention ecosystem, because as you just shared, it's complex.
Yeah. Thank you for that. One more question, because I suspect I'm getting low on time, is honestly more of a comment. You know, our previous mayor, Mayor Jackson, kind of got drugged through the media for a quote of, "We don't know what the problem is. We just haven't done anything about it yet," something to that extent. And I always took that as kind of a commentary less on our appetite to fix large problems and more just a reality of our fiscal state. There's a lot of needs around the city of Cleveland, and you know, just for the record, stating a concern is that the pool at Gunning Rec Center has been closed for the better part of 3 years. And Councilman Casey and I have struggled to really elevate that as an issue, that the pool is closed over the winter because it's the indoor pool, the building's not properly insulated, the heater was broken previously, it was leaking, and I guess as the elected representatives of, the legislature represents the people and the executive branch administers. And I just worry that we could sit at this table and just talk about all the different deferred maintenance at our existing facilities. A mother came very passionately to council last night talking about the Stella Walsh Rec Center. And I guess I worry, do we need to spend almost $1 million to determine how we need to invest in our rec centers and other resources to meet the needs, or do we need to just do it? And the fact that they're new, people will come to them. It'll be very interesting to see kind of attendance at Councilman Jones' new rec center compared to the old rec center, like the allure of something new. I guess I just worry that there are known needs that we hear every single day from our residents, and maybe a frustration in you know, whether it was participatory budgeting or anything else, that council's not maybe seen as credible in being a participant and sharing what the needs of the community are. So I just state that not because I don't view this as adversarial, but I will be curious moving forward how council's input is included in all of this, because we are the elected representatives of the city, and we do have this wealth of really niche knowledge just based on the call volume we get in our engagement with the community. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Slife. Chief, do you want to respond, or anyone, any response to Slife? No?
To the chair, to Councilman, thank you.
Okay. So next up, I have Councilwoman Gray, then then Councilman Jones. Okay.
All right, thank you. I just have a few questions that just came to mind. Just came to mind with this prevention intervention strategy violence program. I was just kind of a little bit caught off guard with this violence prevention strategy program coming from the city, because as I engaged with my colleagues, Councilwoman House and Starr, we had initially brought this up to the safety committee, because we're on the safety committee, vice chair to the committee here. As you know, Sonia, we have been working with you. Sonia, is that okay? It's okay. We're respectful. We have us being on the safety committee, that was one of our major concerns to create a prevention intervention program because of the violence in the city. So that was something we had brought up within the, being on the safety committee and something that we were trying to create a plan. And as you, but part of us knowing what we want to do on our end as council people, and as Councilwoman House went to Milwaukee as well, we all for any strategy violent prevention plan, but as Council House was more engaged in going to Milwaukee, and we were trying to build our own, our own as council's colleagues, all three of us, that we're trying to build something too. So my question is this something that hurdled off from what we had initially was trying, we brought to the safety committee by us being on the committee, and we have communicated with you as our partner to help us, to guide us with what type of plan that we initially have been trying to create and build per se to come up with a better prevention and intervention strategy for the city of Cleveland, because I'm just a little taken aback because now the city has created something and we're still in the process of trying to create something. So I'm just trying to figure out with this money that you're asking for, with the funding you're asking for, and we're trying to get funding for what we were initially trying to do, and we're still in the process of trying to get it there. I'm just trying to understand is this violent prevention strategy program going to still continue to assist what we are trying to do and create just as well? Thank you.
Through the Vice Chair to Councilwoman Gray. This is about us taking all of the work that we're doing collectively and putting it under one plan. And so we, through this work, will partner with council in the way that we have been doing and meeting with you, Councilwoman House, Councilman Starr. You all are a part of that table with us for Cleveland Thrive. So every time we meet, we're making decisions. That group is working as an advisory. That's why that table has been open to you. And so this is one collective plan together.
Okay. Right. Okay. Because even though that I'm part of the Cleveland Thrive committee, as a member, I know a lot of unfortunately, some of the meetings I have not been there because I was obligated to other meetings as a council within my community and also with the council. So this is basically really the first time I'm looking through the program and seeing what is being asked as well as additionally to the $998,000 dollars. So I'll be honest with you, I'm just taking a little back on this right now. Not saying it's not a good violent prevention strategy program. I'm just wasn't aware of the impact of it. And I know that we were all working together to thrive on something that we were trying to bring to the table. And even though we all part of it, it was just my understanding that this was actually being structured this way.
So I would just put a point of clarification. I know that for at least all three of us were, I think, sent the information about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And, there was conversations about it. But I know when we talked about it, and specifically as we looked at American Rescue Plan dollars, one of the things that we noticed last year is that there had been no money geared toward violence prevention. None. And, I'm not a practitioner in violence prevention. I feel like we need to invest in the people who are doing this work. And I know, again, in various different ways, people have opportunities to present things. And again, as things have been unfolding, we understand that an outside entity has, invested $2 million to grant that this Cleveland Thrive, that the city has been awarded. And again, in order to have a plan, you also want to make sure that there are really the investments in our people to have voice in that plan. You know, a lot of times with a lot of the funding that we get, people, the way the grants are written, regular folks can't engage in that process, right? And so again, as we are trying to allow, you know, and we hear that from people, they're not engaged, they don't give voice. This is a start of, at minimum, you know, we you know, our target was to at least get at least $4 million in violence prevention. This is a start into that, right? And again, you know, I know that Chief Pryor Jones and the team, they are always welcoming, you know, to hear thoughts and visions, and if there are things that people want, this is a time, you know, to give voice to that. So, you know, hopefully, as we go through this process, people, you know, will give their input, and if there are things that put forth, you know, we all have the opportunity, you know, to do so, and prayerfully, you know, we can move in a direction that we are, you know, working to prevent and significantly reduce many of the harmful things that are happening in our community. So, any other questions, Councilwoman?
Yeah, that clears it up, true enough. However, I just want to just echo my colleague, Councilman Starr, that I still need a understanding who all going to partner with this strategy program. Like he asked, who were the additional partners? You know, per se, where's that listing?
So I think, is there somebody, I mean, I think this is the other thing too, when we're having, you know, these initiatives and meetings, you know, if there is somebody that people want to, is there somebody that people want to be involved in, there's opportunities to do it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, and again, I think that's one of the things of, while we know there have been people who have been working in this space for a while, there's also opportunity that has been outlined for new people. And so again, as council members have, you get calls. I'm not sure how many suggestions have been given to the Office of Violence and Prevention. You know, for all of us, you get calls. It's a partnership, you know, and I think that's one of the things that we have to work. It's not a us versus them. This is all of us. This is all of our cities. And while someone may have a title, titles do not determine or should not prevent us from offering suggestions. And so I will say for our council members, if there are people in places that you know of working in your community, you are the convener to give them the Cleveland Thrives Initiative, because that's what we have, right? And I really strongly will encourage community members to participate, engage, being funneled through the Office of Violence, Prevention, or y'all know what it is. Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunities for Youth and Young Adults. I know what it is. but that's a lot. It's a mouthful. But again, we are now, you know, like I said, for a long time, we do not work together. It's a Cleveland thing, right. Not just on violence prevention, right. For everything else. Mm-hmm. Council don't even work together.
Right, exactly. And
literally.
Yes, Councilwoman House, and that was an ask for me to ask to see who's all working together. That's an ask that I should be aware of, who's still all working together, not by title of the organization, just by one-on-one personal contact as well. I am boots on the ground. I am a person that intensify my understanding of engagement so I can be better aware and address of what is going on and who I'm going to be working with or who's going to be working in my community, our community as well. So it's an ask if I don't know. And I'm going to continue to ask regardless of who's leading this parade. So it's only an ask for me to understand that what I don't know and what you already know. And that's it. Just to ask more.
Through the Vice Chair to Councilwoman Gray, there is a page in the packet that lists planning and implementation partners. I will also restate that as far as the RFP process concerned, how dollars are going to be spent, we do have a process in as a part of the administration that we do in partnership with you for everything. That same process will be used before any grant dollars are spent or any process dollars are spent with a vendor or an agency that's going to do any of the work.
Okay, that's, yeah, because if it's an oversight on my part, I am admitting that, but I still want to be brought up to part of this information that has been given to me. And that's only fair to the chair, to the committee. That's only fair. So, and I also want to say something about the policy matters Ohio. I do know some of them personally. I've been to the organization that's on 33rd and Perkins, and I have done a tour with them, and I know their history of what they have already done. And one of the young ladies named Kayla, her and I worked on an RTA involvement in our community when we did when I used to work on RTA, and then when I left, she took over, and then when she left, someone else took over. So yes, I do know the work that they have done in other areas in the city of Cleveland. So I know this is a good organization. Just want to put that out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Next, we have Councilwoman Spencer, then Councilman Jones, and then myself. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Councilwoman House. I want to spend my time delving into the budget of the proposed nearly $1 million ARPA request. I totally concur with my colleagues that I think I'm getting a crash course this afternoon in being reminded what the Cleveland Thrive Plan will be, and I can say we all want a Cleveland Thrive Plan, and I can also, I'm sure, speak for all of us in saying we're so thrilled that a $2 million Department of Justice grant has been secured. So I do, though, want, for the purposes of this specific ARPA request, to ask sort of the but-for of this particular request. So through the chair. First, a comment. I concur, Councilman Slife had to step out, but I concur that it would have been incredibly helpful to view this budget within the context of the overall nearly $3 million planning budget, because I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding sort of what this covers, what the other budget will not cover. I do understand the concept of expanding from 7 neighborhoods to broader outreach. But so through the chair, my question is, when the $2 million Department of Justice grant was secured, was that considered to be an incomplete ask or an incomplete grant? Will we not have a Cleveland Thrive plan if we do not provide this additional funding?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, it was not an incomplete ask, but the Department of Justice has a threshold in terms of the funding that they was able to make available. And so we wrote a proposal based on communities, based on data, previous data that had the highest need as it relates to violence prevention, and decided to focus there. And so this request to council allows us to leverage the investment that the federal government has made in our city. It allows us to make our own investment using federal dollars for violence prevention to make sure that we engage every resident and have a plan that really talks about the entire city.
And through the chair, I do understand that. I think we want this work to move forward, and I think that the work will move forward, notwithstanding the additional ARPA request. I understand that there is an ARPA request on the table, so I certainly don't want to hold up the process. But my inclination would be, as of now, if I had to decide right now, which this is what we're here for, would be to hold this piece until we can get the bigger budget to see the full outreach and engagement budget, only because it's a little hard to understand. I think some of the numbers Councilman Slife was referencing a little bit, some of the numbers like $200 an hour for facilitation, that sort of thing, holding 50 meetings, it would be very helpful to have some additional context for the overall cost of the facilitation, communications, and marketing services, to have that big picture and when we're making this, this determination about the ARPA request. So I think it's more, I think that it's kind of, again, the but-for question of, we all want to see this outcome, we all want to see the Cleveland Thrive plan occur and be produced, but wondering, kind of just getting a handle on the big picture of how does these additional dollars, how do they fit into the bigger picture of the overall budget? And I know we've talked about it high level, but we've heard a lot of ARPA legislation the past few weeks, and I'm at a point today where as we're considering additional legislation, I would have a greater comfort level having a handle on the big picture of the whole budget.
Through the chairperson to Councilwoman Spencer, I hear your statements. What you have in the documents before you shows you what parts of the DOJ grant covers what it is covering, lined up with what this request would cover. I would say we are in a moment in time where, as we know, ARPA dollars take time to get out the door. We are in a moment of time where we know violence is happening every day. And we are at a moment of time where we have a unique opportunity with this funding to do something that we've never done before as a city, to have one vision, one plan to address this very complex problem. We are also at a time, to the point that Councilman Starr made earlier, the sunny days are on their way. And I would encourage council to consider all of those things as we're making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. I think it's just, again, where I'm falling a little bit short in understanding the need for these additional dollars is, will we not have a Cleveland Thrive plan without these dollars? Will the plan be subpar, not satisfactory? Will it not? And if so, so in other words, what the Department of Justice funded, did they, in the spirit of funding it, did they feel they were only funding a partial plan, if that makes sense?
Through the chairperson to Councilwoman Spencer, the Department of Justice grant covers 7 neighborhoods. Based on the current need of our community in this city, I believe the investment by City Council, $1 million, along with the federal government's $2 million, $1 million from ARPA dollars from the federal government, would allow for us to have a comprehensive plan that allows us to address violence in a way that we have not before over multiple years. It is a very unique opportunity.
We absolutely want the plan. I think my question that I'm sticking with is, do we feel that we will not have a satisfactory plan without the additional ARPA dollars? And I'll put a pause in that just to say, another thing about the budget here, the 3-year total, I read somewhere in the materials that the Cleveland Thrive plan would be produced by summer of 2024, would be finalized. So I wanted to make sure I understood sort of the 3-year nature of this budget compared with the timeline to produce the Cleveland Thrive plan.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, if we only focus on 7 neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland using the DOJ dollars, the plan will be focused on those 7 neighborhoods, not the entire city. As far as your question is concerned in terms of the 3-year grant, the Department of Justice grant is over a 3-year period. We want to take this engagement process and complete it by next summer. In addition to the plan piece, the Department of Justice grant, which is also outlaid on the slide that you have here, covers the cost of supporting the coordination of our violence interrupter community members, getting them collectively trained, collectively focused on how they engage and do their work in neighborhoods. It also, over 3 years, supports funding dollars that will allow us to pay for more intervention programs like the programs mentioned earlier, maybe more the kind of work that Peacemakers is doing, maybe more work to support safe routes to school. And so that 3-year grant from Department of Justice has 3 areas that it is funding. We are simply coming to council requesting that you fund one area to make it stronger and to make sure that Cleveland has a comprehensive multi-year plan that begins to address and reduce violence as a collective community.
And there is, I mean, the bottom line is that we all want a comprehensive Cleveland Thrive plan. I just am having difficulty today voting for a nearly $1 million budget without seeing the full program budget. And I think that's just a kind of a technical difference of opinion about how I'm comfortable approaching the legislation today and the request. Because I would like to see, for example, what facilitation costs are covered in the full budget. So it's really it seems like a minor difference, but I think that would be what I would put forward to my colleagues for discussion.
Through the chairwoman, may I get copies of this working document made that might address some of these questions?
Madam Chairwoman, can I make a comment? Madam Chairwoman, I've been here since 9:30 a.m. this morning, sitting here at the end of this table, dealing with and deliberating all the stuff that I'm honored to have the opportunity to do and privileged to do so. And listening to what I've been listening here, and this is to my namesake, Director Jones, one of the things that, makes it very difficult, and I've stated this a number of times before you even had the opportunity to be hired to sit at the table, and this is past previous administrations, when you're telling the story, tell the complete story. And then that way, we have the information that we need to have to really fundamentally deliberate through this process. And as many of you are aware of my positioning on ARPA funds and how they should be spent on infrastructure and how we improve public service to our citizens. And that's the fundamental bread, meat, and potatoes, because we know that if we improve building and housing, we're going to have a better housing stock. We know that if we improve our recreational facilities, we know that we're going to have a strong recreational system that can get young people off the street. That's part of our problem right now. So when it comes to our infrastructure and how we deliver
Councilman,
services,
really quick, remember, you're on Councilwoman Spencer's point, so you're
how we
next
deliver
up.
services, I think
Okay.
that's important. But what the council, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman, what the councilwoman is trying to explain, which is important, is being able to see the whole overall picture. And I would like to see that too. And looking at what I got here, it just, Madam Chairwoman, to the director, it's just, I got a gazillion questions that could probably be answered with a full, complete understanding of what you're trying to do.
So do we have a motion on the table to table it? I'm not sure,
Yeah,
Councilwoman Spencer, what?
and I hope to come back. I mean, this is, the reason would be making the motion is not because we don't want to hear this again. I think we do. But I would make a motion to hold the peace today for further study of the overall program budget.
Okay. Do I have a second? No second? Do I have a second? Okay. Councilman Starr, second. All in agree, say aye.
Aye.
Do we have discussion?
Yeah, do you want to have a discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I haven't had an opportunity, so I would hope that
You take my beautiful.
that even though we're going to vote off on if we hold the legislation or not, that I still have my line of questioning to get in. I just want to make sure, Madam Chairwoman, that I do have that, because whatever the information is, whether we hold it or not, and let me ask this question before in terms of discussion, what other committees would it be going through? Where is it headed from here?
Finance.
So after this committee goes straight to finance. So then my question would be making sure that the director has all of the information and questions that I have put forth, so that when she comes back to the table, some of those answers will be available.
I also recommend that each council member meet with Chief one-on-one, and, because I know she has reached out for that. But really quick, so we're still under discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, this discussion. So I am absolutely opposed to tabling this. This body, you all do not engage. You talk about a vote, you talking about, well, we want to see the budget. This body just voted for the $2 million, for the city to receive the $2 million grants. And then I will ask, how many of the committee members, since we passed the $2 million, how many people actually met with the chief to talk about Cleveland Thrives? How many people have actually been to the engagement meetings that Cleveland Thrives has? Has anybody done it? So 3 of us has. And again, I guess it's very, again, and I will say the only thing for me and that I am coming into them, we've talked about ARPA dollars. All this time, not once has this body held anything for public safety, which is not a violence prevention strategy. And we have yet to allocate $1 to true violence prevention. $1. But we hear about violence prevention. And I think it's problematic. If people want to engage, then engage. If you have a plan, present your plan. But that's one of the things for myself. I know I'm not writing no violence prevention plan. If you all, I welcome you all to do it. But it's really, 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 really frustrating when people need to get to work and invest dollars for true violence prevention that we allow to do the work. You never do that when it comes to the public safety or law enforcement. No, and it's just like, it's just irritating, man. It really, really is irritating. And for people that say they care so much, you pass stuff, but you don't engage in budget conversation, and you don't engage when they're having the meetings. Cleveland Thrives, as people talked about it, it's only for 7 neighborhoods. So if y'all good with that, go forth. Don't worry about a citywide plan. We need a citywide plan. We're going into the summer, we're going into the budget, and again, it's very evident that people in this body do not read. They don't read, they don't engage, they don't return phone calls, and it's a problem. But that's my 2 cents, and they will do what y'all usually do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman House. So I have a second on the table. Okay, and you have a discussion, go ahead.
Just for open discussion, and I second, due to the fact that me personally, I want to see who these organizations is. Violence prevention and getting out there versus being a nonprofit 501(c) organization is 2 different things. I'm seeing organizations that I know haven't done nothing that is listed on here, and I'm not big on trying to bash anyone or any organization, and I definitely am going to reach out to Chief and talk to her offline about some of these organizations, because the head people in those organizations haven't done nothing for the city of Cleveland. So that's what I was saying about holding, so I can see an annual report or some data of these organizations that's going to thrive. I do agree with my colleague, Councilwoman House, that we as a city have not put any forth an effort for violence prevention as a strategy. So I definitely want to see how we're going to get this money, and also how we possibly need to add more, because I spoke offline a couple of times. I'm thinking that we need a $5 or $6 million plan just to get started. And I know we're at these numbers of 2.9, but I think we need to invest even more, and in lieu of the fact that we are reallocating funds from public safety with this current budget. So that's me.
And I have Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, I just want to, thank you, Chair. I just want to say something to the chief. The chief has been working with us, so I'm not against anything. It's just an oversight that I missed something along the way, and I would like to sit and have a meeting with the chief so she can bring this together with me more in my head to connect the dots on how we got here with this. It was an oversight that I missed my emails. I apologize for me as counsel. So I just need a little bit more input from the chief just to bring it together so I can see it clearer. So that's why I held it on the strength of that, because knowledge, if I miss something, how can I engage with this plan in my community that has, that's a high rate of violence, per se. So if I'm going to be out there boots on the ground to advocate this, I need to communicate it properly to my constituents, to the youth, so they can know that I have an understanding to teach and tell them something with the organizations who are on this list, who's going to engage in Ward 4 for us to bring this program together. So that's who I am, and that's what I do. So, and that's just an ask. That's it. I missed something, and I need to sit with the chief.
Thank you,
the chair to the
Councilwoman
chief.
Gray. So right now
We'll
we
make
have a
appointment.
motion and a second by Star.
And-
You already,
Just-
you already
just-
did the discussion.
I was
So can we
quick.
vote? I mean, all in favor of holding the peace, say aye.
Aye.
So we have 1, 2, 3. Are you an aye? 4? 4 yeas, 1 nay. Okay, we got that.
Madam Chair, may I make one point? I think that it's not common practice for this body to hold pieces, but I don't view it to be an unhealthy part of the process. I think the goal would be to just make sure that we are fully engaged. And I think what I heard my colleagues expressing, and then from my own, where I sit, making sure that we have a bit of a better handle on the overall plan. And I look forward to hearing it back at the table.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
So that
Well, I
part is
hope that the
closed.
director's not leaving,
Okay.
because I've been sitting here for a long time.
Well, I think since
And I
we're
have
over-
questions.
Okay.
And
we're
these
over.
questions are
Can you meet
germane
with-
to being able to.
I'd be
to-
happy to meet with council
Councilwoman
people.
Stan. Okay.
You could just reach out and we'll schedule.
Madam Chairwoman, you have told me that I have my time to speak.
But we're
This
close, we're
is-
holding the legislation, so
I
we're
get
going to
that,
have
but
time.
Madam Chairwoman, it's important if the director wants to move forward on this particular piece, she would still stay here at the table and adhere to the questions that I have to ask her, because it's germane to this proposition that she's bringing before us. And as a council member,
Chair, I'm not sure if this ended or not, so
Okay.
I thought it
This is
ended.
over.
are you ending?
Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Here, so okay, you all trained me well, right? So, but no, nobody was better at building relationships than Senator Yuko, especially considering the dynamics of the State House and how tough it can be. Senator Yuko found success, and I like to model myself after his